it's just impactful, the way he speaks to them and the wisdom that he brings. And ultimately, I think he and I both are on the same page where we genuinely just want to pursue truth. What is the truth, you know? And if we're living in a deceptive world, let's expose the lies and deceptions and find out what the truth is. Austin was kind enough this morning to sit at breakfast with my family and another family that was visiting and answer a couple hours of questions from our kids about everything from how he met his wife to flat earth questions and everything else. I'm very thankful for that. I've learned that we're like-minded on a very lot of things, especially the most important thing, which is our love for our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I consider him a very, very good friend now, very quickly, and I'm so glad he's here. I want to introduce to you Austin Whitsitt.
All right, how's it going? So, topic that may be very new to some people, and I'll just go ahead and say it. When I first heard anything about this topic, I thought it was insane. So I don't hold it against you if you think it's crazy. But if you've been paying attention the last few years, turns out a lot of things are not as we were told. And that's an understatement. So, like he said, we're going to do a couple presentations. The first one is about NASA. You may be familiar. This is the organization that takes us to space. They landed men on the moon, allegedly. And they're totally not political. They're just a scientific organization. So what I want to do to start the presentation in honor of Heterosexual Awesomeness Month is check NASA and see where they stand on that subject. I wonder where they stand on that subject. I wonder if they would support the free beer. So it'll play a video. It's a few minutes long. It covers if they're going back to the moon. You would have to go the first time, of course, to go back. And we'll get into some of that. But so I figured to break the ice, we'll watch a video. We'll let NASA tell you their position themselves. So let's get into it.
We're going to the moon.
Join us.
Why do you think we haven't been back to the moon?
Historically, you'd have to say Apollo was kind of a fluke.
We've diversified.
NASA's Artemis program to land the first woman and the first person of color on the moon.
We are going.
We don't even have a target date for when we can anticipate a moon.
With such an anomalous situation,
Which might all seem extreme.
We're going. What year do you realistically believe we'll put a land a crew on the moon again?
Within a decade.
We are going.
By 2025,
We are going.
Back to the moon, back to the future, and this time back to seven.
returning to the moon is an important step in our space program.
Will return American astronauts to the moon.
It sounds weird that we'd be so much more advanced now when we come back.
I agree totally.
We're going. And this is how.
Mission. What does it seem like we were blessed over 50 years ago?
I am gay. I am gay. I am gay.
I am a queer woman. I am NASA.
I am a lesbian. I am NASA.
I am a transgender woman. I am NASA.
I am a queer woman, and I am NASA.
I am non-binary. I use they, them. I am NASA.
We still have a little ways to go, and we're passing our way water. We need gay scientists.
We need black people.
We belong.
We belong.
We belong here.
It's not all going to plan.
We've heard the announcement that the Artemis mission to orbit the moon is going to be delayed, and then the next Artemis mission to land on the moon for the first time in decades is going to be further delayed. We saw just recently a very hyped SpaceX Starships blowing up after takeoff in the US last year.
With another setback when the Peregrine moon lander ended its mission in flames over the Pacific.
It was like reaching into the future and bringing a technology forward that normally wouldn't be there, like technology development.
By the 1970s, there was a failure rate of about 20% of missions. In the 2020s, that number is closer to 45%.
We've had 50 years to develop the technologies, they've become cheaper, they've become better understood, but at the same time you have all of these companies that are just learning.
I am non-binary, I am gay, I use they, them, and it just felt really nice to see someone else in the room using those pronouns, and I made sure to introduce myself with my pronouns so that they can know you're not the only one here, there's someone here who understands you and really just wants the best for you.
Really important that we can show that visibility is safe, and that you can absolutely be a part of the team and loved and valued for who you are.
It's never too late.
So we haven't had a lot of experience landing on the moon. We have had experience landing on Mars, landing on asteroids. I wouldn't say that we're out of practice as much as we just have a number of
Exciting. So, as to the question as whether or not NASA is gay, we'll take it straight from them. They are gay. So, does that necessarily mean that they're lying? No. But it's weird, right? It's weird that they're a scientific community, allegedly, and they're very focused on politicizing homosexuality and inclusiveness. So, this is their tweet. I threw that on there. So yeah, just to break the ice, it seemed fitting. I had to add that there. So shout out to Robot Polisher who made the video. So also, I will say, I was recently on the Tinfoil Hat podcast with Sam Tripoli. Some of you may have heard of it. And he said that he has a friend who knows Elon very well, and Elon told him that we never went to the moon. Okay, so this whole interview where he's pretending we went is deceptive. So we'll get into the topic here. NASA was founded in 1958, and most people don't actually know that there was a predecessor to NASA called NACA, N-A-C-A, founded in the early 1900s. This will become particularly relevant in the next presentation, but they basically carried the torch until 58, and then NASA picked it up. And so what I've discovered is that almost no one knows anything about NASA. And so I want you just to think critically for a second. If there's a company or organization taking people to space on a regular basis, don't you think you would all know about it a little bit more? I think it's by design that you guys don't know about it, and we'll get into why in just a second. But so in 1915, NACA was founded. And so we won't keep this too historical and boring, but Congress established the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics or NACA, to separate the real from the imagined and make known the overlooked and unexpected in the quest for flight. So in 1958, the NACA staff, research facilities, and know-how were transitioned to the new NASA. So just so you guys know, the organization referred to as NASA did not actually just start in the 50s. It kind of started in the early 1900s. Like I said, this becomes very relevant in the next presentation. But you'll start to see a interesting deception going on here. So let's talk about the inception of NASA a bit. So in 1945, there was something called Operation Paperclip. You guys may be familiar with that. So after World War II, we brought Nazis over here, and we gave them a pass, basically. Now, you may have fallen down the World War II rabbit hole, maybe not. We're going to leave that for another time. We'll set that aside. It is an interesting rabbit hole, to say the least. But, of course, we're told that Germany was basically the devil incarnate, and the Nazis were terrible people. But our government brought them over here. It's called Operation Paperclip because they put paperclips in different folders of scientists, engineers, etc., that they wanted to bring over here. One of the main people they brought over here is Wernher von Braun. And he's one of the scientists brought over in the operation, later put in charge of space exploration for the United States. He oversaw building the first V-2 rocket that allegedly went to space. This is what supposedly took us to the moon. Now, it has since been discovered that Germany, the Nazis, were propagandizing the public, and they were showing fake videos of rockets, claiming they could go higher and faster than they really could, etc. But that's just the Nazis. America would never lie, right? So we took the same guy who literally, it's declassified and admitted, were lying and propagandizing the German public to think that they could shoot their rockets higher than they could, that they were going to go to space. That guy, and we brought him over here to the United States in Operation Paperclip. That's 1945, so it's a little bit before NASA, but he's later put in charge. I wanted to throw in here that when he passed away, he put Psalms 19:1 on his tombstone. And that, of course, is a Bible verse about the firmament. And it says that the firmament shows the handiwork of the Creator, of God. Now, we'll get into that more tomorrow night, but firmament literally means it's firm. That's why it's called that. Rakia, the root word, means beaten out, strong as bronze. So it's a container stretched over the earth that protects the inhabitants of Earth like grasshopper inhabitants. It's impenetrable. It's like molten looking glass, and it's beaten out strong as bronze. Now, the reason I find that interesting is why would the guy that took us to space, of all the Bible verses, on his tombstone put the Bible verse that says you can't go to space? There's no such thing as that. Side note here I have here, he also told his secretary space propaganda was being used to lie to the public. You can find that online. His secretary came out and said, so here's the deal. Everything about space is a lie. Anecdotal. I wasn't there. The secretary has come out and said that Wernher von Braun told her that everything about space is a lie. They're going to use it to deceive the world, specifically in a few decades, and that they're going to claim that there are asteroids that could come hit us, and NASA has to save us, and they're going to break down the borders of countries, etc. So, it's interesting that this guy said that. Now, I'll just say this, just think critically. The Nazis were brought over here. They would have said or done anything at that point to avoid prosecution. Okay, I mean, if you've looked into it, they tortured them, actually, to get even specific confessions. And so the way that I see it is he cooperated because he had no choice, and he was a front man to claim we went to space. So here's another thing that most people maybe don't notice about NASA. This is an official PDF from NASA themselves. It's called The Origins of NASA's Name. You can look it up. And every single mission, satellite, you name it, is named after Greek gods. If it's not a Greek god, it's named after some other type of god or goddess. Now, I will just ask you, why would NASA care about Greek gods? What does that have to do with anything? You obviously, from a biblical perspective, that's ridiculous and unacceptable. Even if you don't believe in the Bible, you should wonder why a scientific organization not only wants to let us know that they're super gay, but they also want to name everything after gods. It's super weird. And then if you look far enough, what you're going to find is that, well, it's an occultic, esoteric group, and this is all like a form of inner knowledge that they have as to what the world really is. I won't fall far down that till the next presentation. But anyway, here's a few examples. You got Apollo. Artemis is where they're claiming they're about to go back to the moon. They've delayed that 7 times, whatever. You have Gemini, Mars, Odyssey, Atlas, Saturn. This is one of this is like, 5 of 50. Every single mission, Now, it could be a coincidence, whatever. 7 times, whatever. Go read it for themselves. Go read it for yourself. Mars, you'll see Odyssey, everything is named after Greek gods. Saturn. Pretty weird. So if we're going to put things into context, if you are a believer here, you should step back and think, okay, the person that supposedly took us there on his tombstone said you can't go there, and used a Bible verse that said there's a firmament protecting you. The people that are claiming to go to space and defy this firmament are using Greek gods in all of their names. So, just a side note, you guys may not have known that. Now, what I'm sure some people here are familiar with is there was a president named JFK. We're just on X, I think, so we can just say things. You may not know that JFK said that AIPAC had to register as a foreign entity, which means they have to reveal their funding, and he was, of course, killed. There's a few reasons he may have been killed, but before he was assassinated by a magical bullet, he said, "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and to do other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard." That's September 12th, 1962. I think that all of us, certainly the younger generation, is super detached from this, so they don't understand exactly how significant. If you were alive, you know how important this was. This changed everything. This made America the powerhouse of the world. This gave us all kinds of credibility. The space race was over. We won the Cold War. It was a big deal. I want to also point this out. I think I've always thought this is super funny. Why were the missions to the moon, it's a coincidence, called Apollo, which is the sun god? I will find out. It's because sun worship is very important. And side note, for heliocentrism literally came from the people that came up with it said that the sun was a god. So therefore, it must be in the center of the universe and everything must be moving around it. And because it's a god, it creates a vibration that sings a heavenly song and everything moves around it. And that's not what this is about, but it's just interesting. If you look at the actual logos here, you'll see it actually has Apollo's chariot in Apollo 13's official emblem. That's, of course, the story that Apollo rode towards the sun. He was the sun god, and that he dragged the sun with him. So, side note, I didn't know if you guys knew that, but something else, and I'll see if this works. I don't know how well this is going to work, but so almost every one of the people that were on the Apollo crew and supposedly landed on the moon were Freemasons. Now, I don't know where everyone in the room stands on Freemasons. If you're a Mason, I still love you. I'm not hating on you. But it's weird. I'm just going to say it like it is. Grown men playing dress up in the dark is weird to me. And keeping secrets is weird to me as well. So, my great-grandfather was a high-level Mason. I think a lot of people are innocently Masons. I think they help out the community, blah, blah, blah. Not judging, just saying the whole core tenet of Masonry is secrecy. Every single one of the people that went to the moon were a Mason. The vast majority of astronauts are openly and publicly Masons, and who's to say who are not? And this is not me saying this. This is Scottish Rite. This may pull up right here. Here you go. This is their website officially bragging about it. So you got John Glenn, 33rd degree Freemason. Buzz Aldrin Mason. They're all Masons. Okay? This is a Scottish Rite official website, so don't take it from me. They brag about it. So, is it possible? People ask me oftentimes, we're about to get more into this. Do you really think that all the astronauts are lying? You mean like 7 of them? Do you think 7 people could lie? I think after 2020, we should probably know a lot of people can lie. We're not even talking about a lot of people. We're talking about a few Masons that have secret handshakes and play dress up in the dark. So, yeah, they could lie. They could lie. But they read the Bible on the moon, Austin. They're Masons. They lied. So, just in case you didn't know that, maybe it's just a coincidence that everyone that went to the moon were Masons, but I'm just going to reiterate that the core tenet of Masonry is secrecy. It's a brotherhood. It's secrecy. You do not tell what has happened within Masonry. And I will tell you this as well. My great-grandfather, he discovered some things about Masonry towards the end of his life, and he wasn't very happy. In fact, he declined a Masonry funeral and rather took a veteran funeral, and they were not happy about that. And while I was there, I was approached by some people. And so this is a pretty serious topic. This isn't crazy conspiracy theory. No, there's a group of Masons, and when you get to the high level, you discover things that you may not have previously known, and it may be too late to go back. I'll also tell you that Freemasonry straight up says that the earth does not move and that it is flat. Another time. That's what the compass and square represents. So, if there's a group of people who, in Morals and Dogma, Albert Pike, head Mason guy, says that the earth is flat, you can't leave space, it's enclosed, and a group of Masons claim they landed on the moon and went to space, doesn't really add up. So, just so you know. Now, you might ask, logically, well, why haven't we been to the moon since then? Well, let's let Don Pettit tell you why we haven't been to the moon since then. I mean, he's a NASA astronaut, so I'm sure he'll know.
Go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
What? You destroyed it? So yeah, the official story is that there was some type of magical technology that existed in the 60s and we destroyed it and we can't replicate it. And if you don't know, this iPhone right here has more processing power than a warehouse, an entire warehouse of computers at that time. To think that we can't replicate the technology from the 60s is actually just stupid. There's no way around it. So this is the official story. They destroyed the technology, and they destroyed the telemetry data that would prove they allegedly went there. So, just so you know, of course we haven't gone back. We didn't go in the first place. I don't have enough time to break down the moon landing to you guys. That right there is a whole presentation. You can check out the American moon. A funny thing happened on the way to the moon. Many documentaries have broken it down. I'll tell you the most concise way to refute the Apollo missions is the communication based on the speed of light. So the moon's supposedly 238,000 miles away, right? We have a specific speed of light. That means that the communication could have only gone there and back in a certain amount of time. It's under 2.5 seconds round trip. They messed up, and they had some communication under 2.5 seconds, which means it's literally and scientifically impossible that they were on the moon talking to the Earth. So that's the easiest way. Of course, you can go find that the shadows don't match, that there's wires caught in the footage. It's just a film that they filmed. Also, side note, declassified document from the CIA mid-60s show that they were very interested in basically green screen technology. So most people may be surprised that that already existed. It's called traveling matte. They actually used infrared wavelengths. So the complete ability to layer things with fake backgrounds and to make fake films not only existed, but the CIA was very interested in it, and it wasn't declassified till 2013. So that's a whole rabbit hole. I encourage you to look into it if you haven't gotten there yet. The Apollo missions were completely fake. So one question that we normally get is, you think all the people at NASA are in on it. There's a huge overlap, obviously, with quote-unquote flat Earth and this, and so it's unavoidable to occasionally mention it, but I know a former NASA employee, he was even stationed in Antarctica. He's a flat earther, and he's coming on my show soon, so I won't reveal too much, but, it's a misconception that people at NASA either know that the Earth is flying through space and space travel is real, or they're lying. That isn't how it works. They just do their job. They do their job. It's called compartmentalization. It would be very, very ineffective if they didn't do that. So, just so you know, I know multiple NASA employees that are flat earthers. So you put that together for me. All right, so here is an actual astronaut from NASA kind of explaining it. I think it's important to understand this. People will say, well, what about the people in the control room? Are they all in on it? You think all these people are lying? Wouldn't someone come out and say something? Before we get into if the people that have said stuff, here is an astronaut explaining kind of how it all works and how her understanding of it was. And this is a NASA astronaut supposedly been to space. Okay? So let's hear how her understanding of going to space is portrayed, and maybe that'll answer your question, because I get that question a lot. You think all the NASA astronauts are lying? You think all the NASA employees are lying? And no, I don't think that. I think the vast majority of them have no idea, and almost none of them are lying. Although I don't hear anything. Oh, here we go.
We've been simulating these things for so long, and everything is wrong in the simulations. You have devious little men that plan simulations. They plan to do everything wrong so that they can mess everybody up. So when we got to the real mission, it seemed like a piece of cake, really.
What sort of things in the simulations would they have go wrong? What sort of problems would they present to you?
The engine fails. Their gyroscopes and reference equipment will fail. You'll lose communication. They'll underburn. They'll overburn. They'll have abort situations come up.
Do you think that there's any danger when actual astronauts are involved and it's not a simulation, that your mental attitude won't take into consideration the fact that it's a manned mission, that it will be too much like an exercise?
I think you always remember that there are men on board, and even during simulations, it's not just an exercise. The simulations seem as real as the mission. We have men in simulations. They're in the simulator, they're not flying around to the moon. But we feel like they're real.
You feel like they're real, but do you think that the entire space program, as you view it in your work, has a sense of unreality to it?
I think the atmosphere you work in is a little bit unreal as far as the actual facilities concerned. You're totally isolated. You're surrounded by machines. There are no windows in the buildings where you work. The lighting is always the same. You lose all track of time. You think in terms of ground elapsed time, and that becomes the only reality.
So that's an astronaut telling you they're basically MK Ultra. If you don't know, obviously Operation MK Ultra, Project MK Ultra, the government admits they actively brainwashed individuals. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. But the point here is that she said a few very important things. She said that she couldn't tell the difference between the real thing and simulation, and the only difference was that the real thing went way smoother than the simulations. And that there was no way to really know, and even the people that were involved with setting up the mission wouldn't really know. And that there were a few devious men that set up the simulations. So as to the question of, do you think all these astronauts are lying? Well, I think a group of Masons probably could lie, yeah. I also don't think all of them even have to lie. And here is Gene Kranz, that's the Apollo flight director, in his own words, telling you they don't all have to lie. He said, in the late 1960s, our simulation technology had progressed to the point where it became virtually impossible to separate the training from actual missions. The simulations became full dress rehearsals for the missions down to the smallest detail. The simulation tested out the crew's and controllers' responses to normal and emergency conditions. It checked out the exact flight plan, mission rules, and procedures that the crew and controllers would use for a later flight. The simulations were so real that no controller could discern the difference between the training and the real mission. That's straight from the horse's mouth. That the simulations and procedures in the 60s that no one involved in later flight room. The simulations were so real that no what do you think it's like in 2024? Could discern the difference. To answer the question, of course, no, they don't have to all be on it. I don't think straight from the horse's mouth. The simulations and procedures in the 60s that no one involved in later flight. The simulations were so real that what do you think it's like in relay it? Discern the difference. To answer the question, of course, no, they don't have to all be on it. Now let's get into the horse's mouth. The simulations and procedures crew is that no one involved in later flight. You have to look at what tells you if they're real. What do you think it's like to relay it, discern the difference? To answer your question, of course, no, they don't have to all be on. Quite a few straight from the horse's mouth. It tries to explain to you guys that the crew is that you have to look to the videos they claim. You have to look at what tells you if they're real. What do you think it's like to relay it, discern the difference? To answer your question, of course, no, they don't have to all be on. Quite a few straight from the horse's mouth. They have not released public statements addressing to the fact that they just got looked at what tells you if they're real. What do you think it's like to relay it, discern the difference? In Brevard County, which is of course in Florida where they launch rockets. We just got cut off. My buddy got cut off exposing the Challenger hoax. They kicked us out. We've formally sent in suits demanding answers. You don't get answers. So what I'm saying is, if NASA was telling the truth and we're just making stuff up that they're faking it, wouldn't you just quickly address it publicly and debunk it? They do not do that. They do the opposite. They threaten you with lawsuits. They threaten you with crimes. They shut you down. They don't let you finish speaking. They kick you off of every major platform. So this is interesting. Also, all the comment sections are shut off, which is a violation of the First Amendment. As a public federal organization, you must be open to critique. And actually, the Supreme Court's already ruled on that. Even people that work in Congress cannot block people on social media. They cannot turn off comment sections because as a public employee, they are open to critique. So NASA's apparently special and they don't have to do that. They turn off the comment section. So just so you know, there is no official answer. Now you will hear people make up answers, and some people in here may even believe it's real, and you'll start doing mental gymnastics and try to explain some of the stuff I'm about to show you. That's the best you got, by the way. Whatever you come up with is all we got, because there is no official answer, and I'll be honest, there is actually no answer whatsoever to these questions. So here's a guy on the ISS. He's asked a question. This is just a clip out of the video. This is basically a bunch of children record questions, and this is why I'm so passionate about this, by the way. Children are being told these things as if they're fact, and so when you're 5, 6, 7, 8, this develops your entire worldview. And yeah, I think that's pretty important. So anyway, the questions come from children and they answer the questions. It's all edited. None of it's live, obviously, but just watch the guy answer the questions and see if you notice anything that happens. This is officially footage from the ISS. What he's saying doesn't even matter, to be honest. Oh, what is that? They're supposedly in space, right? That's 0G. Am I tripping? I guess things fall in 0G. Whoa! I've heard so much cope for this video, bro. Like, oh, well, no, he threw it down. No, he didn't throw anything, bro. What are you talking about? He's holding a little blow-up fake globe, and he dropped it. He dropped it. So this is a major problem. I think they actually did try to record this live. So what they did was they actually threw in the edited videos that aren't live from the children, and they tried to run through the answers. Watch this guy over to the left as well. He's like, uh-oh. And then this girl in the middle, she's like trying to play it off. She's like, don't pick it up. And these are stooges, bro. These are supposedly the smartest scientists in the world that are in space going 17,500 miles per hour. I mean, just watch it one more time. Obviously, it's pretty obvious what's wrong here. But I think it's funny to watch the dude to the left. He's awful. He should be fired. He can't keep a straight face at all. He totally gives it away. So the question was about hurricanes or something. He drops, he's like, oh no. She's like, don't get it. She's like, don't pick it up. It's so funny. So this is one of maybe like 1,000 that we have, but we'll go through some more. So this one is very interesting. We had to actually take this video and fast forward it. I started something called Audit NASA. You can go to auditnasa.com. Where I'm putting together a team that looks through this stuff, because it's very time consuming, obviously, doesn't pay well. So anyway, these are some of the things that we've caught. If you look over here, can you see my mouse? Yeah. So you look over here to the left, you see this plastic bag hanging on the wall. Now again, this guy's on the ISS. just so you guys know what that is, okay, there's an ISS, and you can in fact see something in the sky. They claim that they're going around the Earth every 90 minutes. So of course they claim the Earth's a globe, 24,900 miles in circumference. And this is free falling around the globe, and it's going 17,500 miles per hour. And because they're free falling, and we won't get into the technicalities of the geodesic of the bending and warping of space-time, blah, 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 they're floating. There's no gravity, okay? That's the official story. And in fact, I've talked to astronauts, they say, oh, you get taller in space and all this weird stuff. But okay, so that's where this guy supposedly is. Now, we had to fast forward at 16x and then again. If you look over here to the left, just remember, everything should be floating. And this is in a Ziploc bag. And watch what happens to this little, it looks like a sticky note, like a pad of sticky notes right here. Watch what happens to this as we go through the sped up footage. It falls. Did you see it? So that's physically impossible. We don't need conversations about, oh, maybe they didn't fake. It's just physically impossible. That means that they faked it. Now, I'll tell you what exactly that looks like. There's something called zero-G flights. So you can get in a plane, you can go up really high, it goes at an angle, and then what they do is they start falling, right? And once they turn and start falling, you feel like you're floating for a second because you're free falling. You only have a few minutes. The official narrative will say there's only 30 seconds, but no, we've already talked to people that do it all the time. You can get up to 3 or 4 minutes depending on how high you go, what speed you go, and what angle you go. So you can float for 3, 4, 5 minutes. That's what would happen in a zero-G plane, right? Because you can't completely avoid turbulence in the plane. Now, I don't know exactly what they did, and it really doesn't matter. They're not floating in space, okay? That's what's important. And I think if you're new to this, it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around the magnitude of that lie, that they're putting out these films to the world. But again, we'll watch it one more time. Nothing should be falling ever. And I'll tell you, I've talked to an astronaut face-to-face and asked her, she said, nothing can ever fall, nothing ever falls. It very clearly falls. I wish I had put a little bit longer there, but you'll see, we'll move right here. It's falling down. Okay, that's impossible. You see it? Make sure we're all on the same page. Okay, that can't happen. So maybe NASA's telling the truth. They just lied this one time. Okay. Now, I will say the obvious elephant in the room here is that if NASA lies one time, you can't trust anything that they say. What normally happens is people start freaking out, and they're like, well, what about this other live stream? It's like, what? Like they didn't mess up one time? It's like, here's a video of your girlfriend cheating on you. What about all the times she didn't cheat on me? What? She's cheating on you, bro. So here's a few videos of them messing up. This is kind of like a smash. And I will tell you, obviously, we can't watch them all. There are thousands of them. And unfortunately for NASA, they started lying in the 50s. And so now, we won't go through every single one. You can see that there's actually now this is a rabbit hole right here in itself. There's a scuba tank inside here. See that scuba tank? That's because they're in a pool. And so that's a whole rabbit hole. There's a real-size ISS replica in a pool in Houston. They admittedly trained there. That's where this film is actually coming from. So let's just go through some of the, okay, here they are floating on the ISS. Oh, wait a minute, what happened? So they all slam up against the wall. Now, there it is, official footage. Oh, that's what happens on zero-G planes. This is literally exactly what happens. So do you guys think that's a coincidence? So there you go. That's just a footage of a parabolic flight, and people fall because once it starts to remove the free fall and you start to come back up, you fall. That's what happened on the ISS. Maybe a coincidence. So, and by the way, this video, and one thing you'll find if you do research this, they scrub all these videos. They scrub them all. They just disappear. We have to pull them. We have to rip them. We have to save them and then share them ourselves. And it's very hard to get the original sources. I do have most of the original sources. You can use something called the Wayback Machine, and that will pull back videos that have been deleted, pull back URLs that have been deleted. And so that's actually how we caught them taking a picture of the Earth too, by the way, supposedly from the moon. So here's one of the funniest ones to me. And we're going to go through some of these because if you've never seen them, we got to break through your cognitive, man. Oh, maybe they faked it there. Like, no, they're liars. And they're gay. So let's... Dude, if you deny that, you're homophobic. They say they're gay. So All right, you see here? What is that? This is supposedly in space. And did you see what happened? Sorry, I forgot I have it all on one video. This glitches out, and it cuts to an actual virtual reality screen. So if you look here, boom. That's a real-life original source video that glitches out. So this shows you, this is supposedly a live stream showing them like moving some arm of some equipment in space, right? And live time, they accidentally try to cut. Now, I could slow this all down. I have done that. You can see it's exactly the same as this expo. So you see that it's exactly the same in the middle corner there. In the middle box, you'll see, I'll try to pause it right on it. Okay, the middle box in the top is exactly the same as the equipment that we see, and you'll see it come back. There you go. It's actually moving in unison. We've done the slow-mo of all of it. So why are they showing you fake footage, bro? If you could go to space, why not just show us that? So this is NASA blatantly using virtual reality and green screens to fake space with models. That should be interesting, right? That should be interesting. Doesn't seem legit. Here's another video of them on the ISS. Again, this is no gravity. Uh-oh. And look, this is what's so telling to me. So everyone's different. To me, I'm like big on the body language. I'm like, watch this guy freak out here. He's like, oh, did I mess up? Someone's like, yeah, bro, you messed up. Watch him like look over to the camera and clearly like being frantic. They drop their divorce papers. Oh, I mess up, bro? That's so funny to me. There's another angle. It's like, oh, gig is up. And no one's ever seen this. Probably no one in this room, unless you've researched it. You've never even seen that. They just scrub it. They mess up and scrub it. All right, here's another one. This is funny. Oh, what just happened? Gravity only happens in magical gravity pockets on the ISS. You just don't know how it works. Look, he just blatantly drops the object. So, and again, the one thing I want to point out, because for people that are being honest, you can tell that they know they messed up. So just like watch him. He's like, oh yeah, that was not supposed to happen. So anyway, I actually mentioned this. I'll say this, right? I didn't put this in the presentation. I don't think I did the best. I could have done better, but I recently pointed this out to Brevard County Commission Office, and I said, so, forensics analysis has been done, and it has proven that objects are free-falling in an allegedly zero-G environment, which is scientifically impossible. And NASA needs to come out and either launch transparent disclosure or somehow explain it. And, of course, they just ignored it and then kicked us out. So there's to me, I think it's, the whole conversation's over. NASA's lying. They're dropping stuff in space. So I don't know. I've never heard. I asked an astronaut face-to-face. I go to NASA on occasion. I talk to astronauts. I haven't released all that footage because I know once I do, they won't let me go back. But she told me face-to-face, nothing can drop on the ISS. Nothing ever falls. I said, oh, I've seen people drop things. And then she just nervously laughed and asked if I wanted a picture. So you tell me. So this is another video. He drops a screw. So obviously you guys get the idea. They're dropping stuff in space. You got to wonder, though, like, if space is real, why would you lie about it? Even if you couldn't go there. Just don't lie about it. It's because it's not actually a place you can go to. And that's where you fall down the rabbit hole. So let's see. I won't make you go through all of these. Here, this guy is magic and just goes through the lemon. It's because the lemon is layered. It's augmented reality. The lemon's not actually there. I can do that in my live stream. So obviously, I hope you saw it. We'll do it again. His hand goes right through the lemon. Some people make up the craziest excuses for this stuff, but I'm just showing people that are honest, so I don't care about the rest. All right, here is actual footage from NASA's moon mission. And watch in the bottom left. Oh, what was that? Oh, it's a space meteorite. So anyway, it's supposedly locked in its place. Obviously, it messed up, but there's so much here. Let me skip through some of it. They fake it. Honestly, this is my favorite stuff, is when they show like close up of supposedly Earth. So we've slowed it down. We've shown the stars go through the Earth. The stars are a layer. So this is fake. Here he's showing that the lightning actually glitches out. It's all CGI. It's CGI. So we'll save you some time. Take my word for it or don't. Look, that's actually fake. So, but okay, this is very funny to me. So watch, they're supposedly playing with the soccer ball, because I want to point this out to you guys too. Isn't it weird that people on the ISS, they're just like constantly concerned with convincing us that they're on the ISS? Why? I want to make sure you guys know I'm in space. Why would you do that? Shouldn't you be doing science or something? Every single thing is like, hey, trust me, bro, we're up here floating in space. No, you're not. So if you watch the ball's going to bounce off of nothing. Watch it. It just bounces back. What? That's because it's a screen. That background is layered. It's a green screen. They're in front of another wall that can be removed from the background layer. He accidentally drops the ball. It just bounces off of nothing and bounces back. And there are thousands of things that happen like this. I'll show a few more. Here's Don Pettit. I guess there are bugs in space, and he just swats a bug. And if you don't know anything about Don Pettit, he's not the brightest. I'll get you this. So he messes up a lot. So he's not the brightest guy. We'll skip some more. Here, I want you guys to know what they do, right? So here they have different ways to do it. They have contact lenses, all kinds of stuff, and you'll have a screen over here in front of you, and you'll look and you'll see the object, and you'll interact with a fake object that's not really there. They can make it float that way. This guy thinks he's grabbing the hat, but he hasn't handed it to him yet. You see it? And then he sits it down. What are you sitting down, bro? You don't got anything in your hand. So this guy messes up a lot as well. It's funny. So they're using augmented reality to make it look like the hat. This isn't NASA, but another thing I hear a lot is, you think all the space agencies are lying? Like, have you ever looked at the other space agencies? Their videos are way worse. Like, yeah, let's go talk about that actually. So this is Japan or China. Oh, it just falls. Just falls. It's on the ISS though. It's just hilarious. Let's see what's next here. I mean, I think we all saw it. It falls. I've never heard an explanation for it, but whatever. Here is interesting. You actually see, some people might want to know how it works. They wear harnesses and wires, clearly. You can actually see the wire here. So they mess up, and that's because there is a reflective screen back here, and so it shows the wire. So if you look closely, you'll see that there's like a part of his shirt that's pulled up like this, and then you'll see the wire connected to it. It's like a hook right there, and it goes right with the part of his shirt. So yeah, he's hanging on a wire. And by the way, that's how we make space movies. This isn't like a new thing. It's just how you do it. Probably coincidence, though. That is true. I don't know if I have a lot of hair. I might have some hair in here. They do use hairspray, yes. There's another part where obviously he's got the harness. I wonder if I do have hair in here. So obviously they're supposedly floating in space, but you'll see that all the female's hair just doesn't move. It's because it's hairspray. It's hairspray, right? Because you can watch someone do the zero-G planes and their hair floats around. Like, it's almost like watery. There may be one of those in here. I don't know. There's so many. It's like picking from a haystack here. Let's see what else we got. I don't even know. Oh, transmission issue. All right, it's green screen. That's why you saw the green there. I'm trying to speed up a little bit through here, but so here is very funny. The guy just disappears from the screen. Oh, where'd he go? Before he gets around the corner, he disappears. It's because the astronaut's layered. I'm being somewhat over the top here with examples because I've seen people, they got to get away from it. It's uncomfortable. NASA's lying about space. Okay, they lie. This is fake. It's basically a movie set. So now you know. And then here's one that's pretty blatant. The astronaut just pops into existence. And it's over and over and over. I won't make you guys look at all of them. They use models in space, and here's one doing. Okay, here's a funny one, and then we'll move on. This is hilarious. Now, there's something before the ISS called Space Lab, I believe it's called. Skylab. Thank you. Okay, this is the ISS before the ISS. And supposedly, while they're on the Skylab, they brought up, now they'll be like, every single pound matters. I don't know if you've ever heard all that. It's like when they go to the moon, they snuck golf clubs, and it almost took them overweight. Yeah, they snuck golf clubs on the moon. They took 500-pound weights, allegedly, and this guy's picking it up. And the point here is like, watch this. Watch him. What is going on? So he's hooked the strings. So the funny part is that back in the day, it was harder to fake stuff, right? Like now we know that's fake. Back then, people might have fallen for it. But so I go straight to the old stuff. Now watch, the weight is supposedly in 0G. You'll see him start struggling like he's lifting it, and then it falls down. It's supposed to be 0G, bro. Did no one tell you? It's supposed to be floating. And then obviously they have something attached to him, and then they just pull him up. So it's so funny, yeah. So, and then I think this part might be a little important because I don't really know where we're at on time. But here's how they fake it. So if you look here, this is how they do it in movies. They put people on strings, and so this isn't like some crazy conspiracy. This is how we make movies, right? Like we know that's what they do. So there's how they do it on the screen. You obviously have green screens. Most of you are probably familiar with that. People ask, how do they have water in space? How does she have magical black fluid coming from her eyes? That's not there. It's just special effects. And then I'll show you here. You'll see the girl has a necklace that's floating in space. Oh, all of a sudden there's a necklace floating. And then I'll show you one more, just so you guys kind of get an idea of how it's faked. And you should be furious about this, by the way. They get $60 to $80 million a day. So that's your taxpayer money. And they're just making films with it. So here is the Big Bang Theory TV show. So I think if they can fake the ISS, NASA probably can. So there you go, just so you know kind of how it's done. They just overlay these objects. It's not real. So obviously, we could have done that for another 4 hours. I encourage you guys to look at it. You can actually go to my YouTube, Whitsitt Gets It. I have a NASA fraud thing. There's lots of good, to get past censorship, you have to get to one of the real content creators, and then you can find it. We'll lead you to the truth. All right, so, and we'll skip through this, but I think this, maybe someone requested hair, so obviously we've seen this one. Just grabbing something that doesn't actually exist. Not only is the ISS 0G, there you go. All right, so, and you know what's so funny? Why is she pointing at her hair? So, I don't have the audio in here, I don't think, but basically they say, are you really in space? That's what the interviewer says. And like, yeah, look at my hair. It's like a movie, bro. It's like well, why are they trying to convince us they're there, So look, her hair doesn't move. Now watch, he also grabs him here. Whoa, what's that? Let me bring it back. So you see him grabbing the string to make sure, see, he pulls the string. That dude's on a wire. You see him pull it? And then obviously this girl has hairspray to make you think that she's in space. You can watch people up. I call those weak words. I'm not a fan. But anyway, here's some more hair for you. There you go. Look at her hair. Everyone knows what hairspray looks like, right? Some of you were even alive in the 80s. You know exactly what it looks like. That's just hairspray. So, isn't this weird? Like, isn't it weird that our government's lying and making movies about being in space? Yeah, this is obviously all very heavily censored, but there we go. I think you guys get the idea. Do your own research. Now, you can go one of two ways. You can be like, okay, look, he just grabbed a string. Look, her hair's not moving. Look, objects floated out of nowhere. Oh, things are falling. Or you can be like, well, actually, there was an air current from the air conditioner that made it look like it was falling. And actually, you can do whatever you want to do. I just showed you guys the information. They're faking space. There's really no way around it. Now, I find this part pretty interesting.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, so I'm going to let my boy, this is Taboo Conspiracy. I'm going to let him kind of explain this to you, but this is to address this question, okay? Why don't astronauts come out? Why don't any of the astronauts come out and tell us? If the Earth is not what they said, if space isn't real, wouldn't one of the astronauts blow the whistle? Well, honestly, most of them wouldn't. I will say my dad was in the military. He will not tell me what happened, okay? It's not on the table. It's not on the table. He's not allowed to tell me what happened, okay? And that's my own father. So obviously you have NDAs, and it's really not even technically called an NDA, but it's effectively an NDA. When you're in the military, you're talking about treason if you come out and say things. So that's a kind of a cope question, like why haven't the astronauts said anything? Do you actually think that the astronauts would come out and say something and risk their life so you could just call them crazy anyway? So, but here are a couple that did. And you may find it interesting. This will kind of lead us into the next presentation in a second. You'll find it interesting what they had to say. So I'm going to let Tabu kind of explain it to you.
This is absolutely huge news. We've already had one cosmonaut claim that the Earth is flat. His name was Miroslav Hrmajuski. Here he is getting a photograph with a flat earther, and this is a Wikipedia article on Hrmajuski. Please watch his interview.
I don't know if you guys speak Polish, but I do not. But it says, you've been there, is Earth really a sphere hanging in outer space? Interesting question, huh? This is a Polish astronaut. Been to space, allegedly. Official Polish astronaut.
Jest płaska. Tak jak oczekują. Nie spodziewałem się do tego pytania, ale zapewniam pan, że jest płaska.
So he says the Earth is flat, as many expect. I didn't expect this question. I can assure you it's flat. So that's an interesting comment from an actual astronaut, right? So I'll move you through. That's official. You can go check it out. All right, let's check.
Now we have a Soviet cosmonaut who has said that we have never been to space. This cosmonaut's name is Igor Petrovich Volk. Mr. Volk even received the Medal of the Hero of the Soviet Union. I have included a translation of the interview, which you can verify by clicking on the CC button on YouTube. Now please watch the interview.
I'm just going to read it for you guys. So after all, you are a hero of the Soviet Union, and we can trust you. Okay? He said, look, the code of honor prevents the cosmonauts from talking about what happens in space.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, my goodness. This is this is crazy to me, but. Okay. Says we haven't been to space. Basically, they're in context. They're saying like people don't really want to know about truth. That requires you to think, and he says we haven't been to space. If someone claims that we have been, it is not true. It is not the truth. This is another hypothesis of which I and the viewers of A Matter of Perspective will have to think about for a long time. The cope from this was that the guy must have been joking. He later comes out and clears up he was not joking. In fact, this same guy interviewed him. I won't make you guys watch it, but he comes out and says, he told me in private for sure. No one's been to space. The moon landing's fake. You can't go to space. Anyone saying that they went to space is lying, and that the Earth is flat. So that's weird. So, I mean, automatically, it's not just some crazy guy up here from Florida saying the Earth is flat. We're talking about astronauts. We're talking about before they die, they come out and say that the Earth is flat and you can't go to space. And that may be a tough pill to swallow, but why do astronauts think that? And the reason I threw that Soviet Union guy in there is because people say, you think the Soviet Union wouldn't have told on us for faking the moon landing? No, I don't think that. Do you think that the mafia goes and tells the cops how the mob works? No. They're all faking space. Why would they go tell on the other person faking space? And why would they make it known to the public, space is something that can be faked? They wouldn't do that. That's another cope question, as I called them. So anyway, here's an interview he has later, and he explains, we won't watch all this, but this guy straight up explains, no, I talked to him in private. He definitely wasn't joking. I hung out with him for a week. He said space travel's fake, and they're faking space travel. Anyone in America that said that they went to space is lying. Everyone knows the moon landing was fake. None of that's real. You can't go to space. And now, if you don't know, the Soviet Union was the ones that claimed to get to space first. See, we went on the moon first, allegedly, but the Soviet Union got to space first. So we have Soviet Union astronauts saying that that's all a lie. And this is the guy that interviewed him explaining it. So I thought that was interesting. This would technically be fallacious to say that this proves it. It would be anecdotal. But do you have any proof people were in space? No, it's all anecdotal, and it's like NASA wouldn't lie. So let's see what we got here. Okay, this is hilarious, and this will maybe wrap us up. I didn't keep up with time. Sorry if I went over. So this is a compilation of different NASA astronauts answering the question as to whether or not you can see stars in space. Now, I'll say this. Don't you think if you've been to space, you probably know what happens, right? Like, if someone asked me what happened in my high school state playoff game, I know what happened. No, the guy blitzed on third down. We didn't pick him up. Like, I know what happened. I'm not going to be like, I don't know if you can see the football, right? Like, I know what happened. I lived it. It's important that we just come to grips with the fact that these people are lying to you, and if you want to believe it, that's cool. They're lying to children. They're lying to children. And you know how many children think being an astronaut would be super cool? You know how many children have their whole worldview formulated by the idea that we're a tiny speck of dust in an ever-expanding universe and you can go fly in a vacuum? That's important. And if you don't want to be strong enough to point it out or call it out, don't include the children in that nonsense. I've been to NASA. They are inundating and indoctrinating children emotionally, and it is a lie, and it is disgusting, and it should be exposed. And so that's kind of how I feel about that. But let's listen to them, and you can decide for yourself if these people are being honest. Keep in mind, again, this guy's supposedly been in space 100 times. The other guy's been in space 100 times. And they're asked a simple question, and let's compare them all, and then I'll tell you a little bit of a personal testimony in relation to this, and we'll wrap it up.
Whilst in space, have you ever looked away from Earth into the black void?
Sorry. I gotta pause it. Why does he not know the answer? Why does he look at the other guy like, what's the answer? Oh, yeah. It's like, I'll use the cheating analogy again. It's like you go up there and it's like you're talking to someone's friend. Was he really with you? Yeah, we went and played pool, bro. Yeah. Like, it's so obvious to me that they're lying.
Away from Earth into the black void.
Right? I thought you'd been there, bro.
You can see the stars. Oh, yeah.
Pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
It's not a black void. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of polka dots.
There's all the stars there. The cool thing is, though, you can see it during the day.
There's more than stars. You can see planets. You can see moons.
You see the gas Magellan clouds of the galaxy.
And then you can see the zodiacal light. Those are amazing, right?
The zodiac?
The lights of the zodiac.
Why is he talking like that?
But one thing to add to this, I think, which is kind of interesting about being able to look into the black void, is that we can't do that when the sun is out here on Earth. It's not because the sun is so bright. It's because this atmosphere, right? The light comes through the atmosphere and refracts, and we see blue. We see blue. So what we see is,
when you looked up at the sky, could you actually see the stars in the solar corona in spite of the glare?
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon without looking through the optics.
Uh-oh. This is the interview of the moon missions, obviously. If you've never seen that, you should watch it. They all act like they saw a bunch of puppies get run over or something. And they supposedly just accomplished the biggest feat in the history of man. But, so anyway, just so you know the context. This is supposedly the Apollo crew after they landed on the moon.
I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the southern patrol what stars we could see. I don't remember seeing it.
Mr. Armstrong, I do realize that when you were on the moon, you had very little time gazing upwards. But could you tell us something about what the sky actually looks like on the moon? The sun here, the stars again, and so on?
The sky is a deep black when viewed from the moon, as it is when viewed from cislunar space, the space between the Earth and the moon. The Earth is the only visible object other than the sun that can be seen, although there have been some reports of seeing planets. I myself did not see planets from the surface, but I suspect they might be visible.
only see stars in the daytime on Earth, not because they're not there, but because the atmosphere is aglow with scattered light from the sun. If you take away the atmosphere, the sun will still be there, but the sky goes dark. That's what the folks get when they go to the edge of the atmosphere, and they're calling that the edge of space. But when you get to the edge of the atmosphere is no longer between you and the rest of the universe. And the stars reveal themselves just as they would at night. Since the moon has no atmosphere in a daytime picture, if you're there in the daytime of the moon, you see a full night sky of stars, even with the sun in the sky as well. But when you get to the edge of the atmosphere, the stars reveal themselves just as they would at night. If you're there in the daytime of the moon, you see a full night sky of stars, even with the sun in the sky as well.
The sky is indeed black when viewed from the moon, as it is when viewed from cislunar space.
Well, I think it's important to point out that that's the official model of the Earth. It isn't actually debatable based on like simple physics. You would see the stars on the day side of Earth in space because there's no atmosphere to scatter the light. There would be no diffusion of light. You would see the stars. So it's crazy they couldn't even get that story right. But
between the Earth and the moon,
is you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
And pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
It's not a cool thing. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of cool things.
There's all the stars there. The cool thing is that you can see it during the day.
Okay.
Yeah, actually on my very first mission, we went up and when you're in space and you're looking into deep space and you're on the sun side of the orbit, the sunlight washes out all the starlight, so you can't see any stars, just like here on Earth. But then when you look out into deep space away from the sun, it's the darkest black you can imagine.
Because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
And pretty much all the time you can see the stars. The cool thing is that you can see it during the day.
And when you're in space and you're looking into deep space and you're on the sun side of the orbit, the sunlight washes out all the starlight, so you can't see any stars, just like here on Earth.
There's all the stars there. The cool thing is that you can see it during the day.
They're bright, but they're different. And a lot of things different about one, you don't have the atmospheric distortion, so they don't twinkle, right? So you see lots of points, and you see lots of points, and literally millions of them. I live in Colorado, when you get up on a clear night in Colorado up in the mountains where there's no light and you can see all these stars, well, multiply that by 1,000. That's what it's like in space. And then when you're outside doing spacewalk, and you have that one or two opportunities where you can let your eyes adjust, you can start to notice that some of the stars have colors we don't see here on the ground.
And we cannot see stars. The sky, of course, was black, but it had sort of a velvet sheen to it. The biggest visual surprise was just how black the sky was. You have a brilliant sun, brighter than any sun you normally would see even here in New Mexico. You have these extraordinarily high mountains. We were in a valley deeper than the Grand Canyon. But then you had this black sky, a sky blacker than black, as the old...
This guy's way better of a liar.
Just the inherent beauty of it, the velvet, bottomless bucket of the universe.
I think you guys get the idea. They contradict themselves.
And the most frightening darkness that you could ever imagine.
I've often tried to explain the difference between darkness, when you turn out the lights and it's dark in here, or blackness. Blackness is the endlessness of it all.
It's like a bottomless pit.
To comprehend.
When you get up on a clear...
Anyway, there's like 10 more examples. They're all liars. Okay, now we'll close it with this. I mean, obviously, I hope you put that together. They're telling directly contradictory testimony. So some are saying that when you're in space on the side of the sun, you can see all kinds of stars because there's no atmosphere. Some are saying, oh, you can't see any stars. The sun washes out the stars. They cannot both be true. They could not have both have gone to space and looked at stars. This is very simple stuff. Right now, I'll tell you this to close it out here. Like I said, I can't show the footage because I know as soon as I make it public, they'll kick me out of there. Right? They won't let me go anymore. But I go to NASA and I document conversations with the astronauts. I have quite a few. When I release them, it will be very interesting to see what happens, to say the least. But this is one that I talked to here. This girl supposedly in space, and she's doing a spacewalk, and she drops her bag. She drops her tool bag. Uh-oh. Okay. And what's so funny is they claim, you saw how big, it was like a backpack. They claim you could see it from the Earth, and it looked like a star. literally. This is an official thing. But anyway, so you know who I was talking to. And I'll close it with this. So I went and talked to her face to face, and it's not a good look for NASA. So I trapped her with this whole conversation. I had very tactical questions. I caught her lying 3 or 4 times. She got super nervous. I then asked her about, and again, mind you, I'm like 2 feet away from her, like it's face to face. I asked her, so do you see the stars on the day side of Earth when you're in space, when you're on the side of the sun? She said, no, you can't see the stars when you're on the side of Earth that has the sun. I said, are you sure, though? Okay, are you sure you can't see stars? No, 100% you can't see stars. I've heard that you can see stars even on the day side of Earth. And she said, so she realized, like, oh, she messed up, right? She didn't know the official story that she was supposed to tell me. This is the girl right here that dropped the bag. And she says, no, I'm pretty sure you can't see stars in space near the sun. So that's a personal testimony. I lived it. I can tell you, I looked her in the eyes. She's a liar. She 100% is lying. I would bet everything I own on it. I know she's lying. She got nervous. She dropped things. I asked her, do you have to test your spacesuits in the vacuum? I haven't revealed all of this yet, but she's like, yeah, you have to test them. I'm like, okay. Well, I saw someone test it, and their tongue started boiling. So that's intense. And she's like, oh, no, it's really pretty mundane. It's no big deal. They drop you in the vacuum chamber, and then you know what else they do? They put a bowl of water in there so you can see it. And I cut her off. I said, boil. She's trying to convince me they were really in a vacuum. She's like, oh, they also will drop a bowling ball and a feather. And I'm like, and they drop at the same rate, right? She was telling me propaganda narratives. Just think about this logically, that they're going to test a spacesuit to see if you're going to die when you go to space. They lower the astronaut into the vacuum, and they're like, while we're at it, let's put a bowl of water in there that boils to convince the astronaut he's really in a vacuum. Let's drop a bowling ball and a feather. Okay, and hopefully that was coherent enough to follow. Long story short, they are liars. They are given a script to reveal to the public, and when you go in there and you ask them certain questions, they start messing up. Because most people go in there and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you sign my shirt, right? So they're not ready for anyone asking questions. And so I will just close it with that. I will tell you, not only have we seen like damning evidence that obviously NASA is objectively lying and faking footage, but I have kind of Veritas style footage I haven't released yet, who has caught them point blank lying and contradicting themselves in the same conversation. And so I'm really going to be interested to see someone cope with the fact the astronaut doesn't know what happened when they were in space, and they're lying. So just so you know, I'll say this in closing. This is super important. I went there, and they have a whole setup where they have the children come in, and it's called like Heroes, and they play this real like triumphant, climactic music. They talk about the astronauts that lost their lives and how they're heroes. And I saw children from 3 up going in there, watching this film, crying. It's propaganda, and people may wonder why, like, what's it matter if they believe in astronauts? Well, they think that space is something that it's not. They think that people can go there. They live their whole life thinking that, and we'll get into it later in the next presentation, but it has major implications on their worldview. They think that they're a tiny speck of dust in this ever-expanding vacuum of nothingness, and we know that it's like that because people went there. Well, people didn't go there. And so I will say that's what's going to lead us into the next presentation, I'm assuming after a little bit of a break, is if NASA's telling the truth, the Earth can't be flat, obviously, because they've been there. They looked at the Earth. It's a ball. We got pictures. It was on my iPhone. It was the wallpaper on my iPhone. Admittedly Photoshopped, by the way, but we won't get into that yet. So the point is, oh, well, NASA is lying. So now I want you to think, because I'm not going to let you get away if you thought you were going to leave before the FE presentation. Okay, I want to know, what evidence do you have the Earth is a globe? And I know for a fact, if you think it's a globe, it is that NASA supposedly showed you a picture of it. That's a fact. Let's just be real. You've never seen a globe. You never felt the Earth spinning. NASA went there and did it for you. You saw a picture. We now know for sure NASA is not a credible source. They're lying. They're basically a glorified film studio. They own the world's biggest green screen, literally. They own the world's biggest green screen in Louisiana. We cannot trust them. We must detach from the government. We must no longer let them formulate our worldview. We must no longer blindly believe them, and surely after 2020, you know that. So, in conclusion, I will say, NASA has been proven liars and fraudulent. I encourage people to go check out Audit NASA, try to support it. We're trying to hold them accountable. They should have to be accountable for lying and stealing. They should actually be tried for crimes against humanity, I say. And I encourage you to look further. You'll be surprised. The Earth is not what you think, and space is not what you think, and no one's ever been there. You can't go there. And so, yeah, that's basically the closing. NASA's lying to you, stealing your tax money, $60 to $80 million a day. And that should infuriate you. They're liars. And maybe we can raise enough awareness to finally stop them. So there you go. That's the presentation.
Thank you, Austin. That was awesome. Great segue into the next stage here. I'm curious, who here has ever looked into this before, done research on this? Let me see a show of hands.
You saw it?
That's awesome. And I know it's an interesting topic to have in a public space. I don't know if you have ever had a conversation with a family member or friend around this topic. I can say I was very timid on it. 3 years ago, I guess 3 years ago when I started researching it, but after a while there's just so many things that reinforce and pattern recognition will show you, and I don't think you have enough time in this amount of time to really go through all the different things that show from many different angles, whether it's scientific or just the fake green screen things we're seeing here. The fact that they don't have their script together. I don't know, has anyone seen the footage of Buzz Aldrin talking to a little 6-year-old girl? Yeah, they're pretty impressive. Let's see, we have Bill Nye the Science Guy and Obama both saying that we've never made it past the Van Allen belt, but isn't the moon supposed to be past the Van Allen belt? So there's just so many things there. So I love that we're just setting up the fact that first there's a lie here. I know we'll get more into the why and also a little bit more about the cosmology. I will just say this, think about what you thought when you were a kid. I think kids actually have it right before they get indoctrinated, and then they get told, and you're like, wait a minute, wait, what? And then you have to think it through, and you'll understand when you get older. It's like, no, they understood when they were kids. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to take questions for Austin regarding this topic. So, all right, everyone. So we're going to take about 10 minutes of questions up until 7, and then we'll take another big break, and then start our next session at 7:30, which will be our intro to Flat Earth, or Flat Earth 101. Anyone unfortunately, we can't text questions tonight right at this time because Mark had to step out for his son's black belt testing. So I will actually just walk over to you if you have a question, and you can speak it into the mic. And then Austin, it'll be for Austin to answer questions. All right, we got one here in the back.
My question is regarding the Van Allen radiation belt. Isn't it impossible to pass through that? And I went on NASA's website, and it was saying, oh, they got lucky because they only were passing through it for a certain period of time, and the human body can take a certain amount of time to go through this radiation. Sounded like bullshit to me, but I don't know.
Yeah, so good question. So the official story is that there's something called the Van Allen radiation belt. I'll say that because I don't believe any of their stories. I think that there is a container and there is a magnetic field around the Earth that you can't penetrate the container. But yeah, it's funny because they say that they didn't even account for it. They didn't know about it. They were in a spaceship that's super flimsy, and the module could you just stick your finger through it. Official story. And the astronauts were asked about it, and they're like, we didn't go through the Van Allen radiation belts. And then the interviewer's like, yeah, you did. And he's like, oh, well, we didn't notice it. We didn't have to worry about it. And then they used the Van Allen radiation belts as an excuse as to why we can't go back. They said, oh, people can't go through there. It's super dangerous. They'll die. We're still trying to develop the technology to get them through there. So that's kind of the whole story with that. It's just a lie. Obviously, you can't go through them because they don't exist the way we've been told, I would say. But I think it's pretty telling that they say the reason they can't go to space back to the moon is because of those, but they allegedly just went through them no problem. So that is probably
Am I clear that Van Allen was a Freemason also?
Of course.
Well, I have a question. There's Christian astronauts that went into space and wrote books about Jesus in space with all these pictures. Is there some kind of simulator they put them in to make them think that did they really believe it, or are they just lying?
Okay, good question. So I think the ones that went to the moon know they didn't go to the moon, for sure. This is because basically Buzz Aldrin turned into an alcoholic and over the years kind of let it slip a few times that we didn't go. Neil Armstrong just completely disappeared. He didn't even make public appearances. So what I think happened, this is speculation, I think they kind of thought it was real. And then right beforehand, they told them, well, we're going to have to fake it. And, they were all former military, so they would know that they can't say anything. I think that the actual Apollo astronauts that supposedly landed, now I know they all claim to be Christian, and obviously just saying that you're Christian, in my opinion, doesn't make you one. But I'm not going to say they are not one. That's not my position. But specifically, the Apollo astronauts are liars. I'll just call it like it is. I think that Buzz Aldrin kind of tried to let a little girl know we've never been. He's been interviewed a few times and said I've never gone. What was the most dangerous thing about the Apollo missions? Well, it could have been dangerous, So I think he let it slip. As to if other astronauts have claimed that, and I don't know what exactly you're referencing, like maybe ISS ones or not. I do think that a lot of them can be in simulators. Like we watched the girl say, I can't tell the difference in the real thing. She believes she's been in space. I don't think she's in on a lie. I think that they admit they have simulators that are so realistic that the astronauts can't tell the difference for the entire space mission, which is kind of insane to wrap your mind around. But yeah, I think they put astronauts on a simulator, and it looks just like the training to them, so they wouldn't know. And that's why I threw the Gene Kranz quote in there. It says, like, not even the control room can tell the difference. So I think it's a mixed bag. I think when you have to claim you got out of the spacecraft and walked on the moon, you're going to have to lie. There's not much simulating that, but it's probably a mixed bag would be my answer. I don't think that it's too crazy that a lot of them wouldn't know. According to them, they wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So that's my answer.
Hey, Austin. Over to your left.
Oh, what's
Appreciate
up?
you being here tonight.
Yeah.
What is the International Space Station if we haven't been to outer space?
Whoa, good question. That's covered in the next presentation. No, I'm just kidding. It is, but so if you don't know, supposedly there's a satellite called the ISS. No footage of it ever being manufactured on Earth. It's super sketchy, but there is something up there. You can track it. You can download the ISS tracker. You can go out and see it. I've done it. I've tracked it. We've even caught it crossing the moon and the sun. What is it? Good question. I think satellites aren't fake. I think you can put things in the sky. I don't think that people can be on it. I don't think anyone's on the ISS. It's hard to answer this without getting too technical, to be honest, but according to the equations used for the ISS and other satellites, they use a geocentric model. So they use a stationary Earth. They assume that the universe spins around the Earth, creates a force that you can throw something. It's kind of like if you had a whirlpool in water, you could throw something in it and it would start spinning. That's what the physics and equations show. So I leave it open for that basically the ISS is something that's utilizing the inertial forces from the rotation of the universe around the Earth. There is certainly something up there, but I would say logically, they probably wouldn't have to fake dozens of hours of footage if they were really on it. So that's my answer.
Is it something NASA put up there, or is it?
Good question, bro. Because then it comes into it was first observed in the 80s, but was it up there before that? I don't know. Is it a naturally occurring thing? It looks like something man-made. So I do think that we can put stuff in the sky that floats around called satellites. Some flat earthers don't think that. I do think that. So maybe they put it up there. Yeah, maybe the government put it up there. and they're just lying about where it is, how far away it is, and what it does, and who's on it. So that would be my answer. Yeah, I mean, we know what they're claiming is going on isn't true, right? So that's really all I can speak to.
Hi, Austin. Could you, and thank you for coming here and sharing. It's just marvelous. Could you just share a few names that are big in this sphere of, the flat Earth versus the globe? There's people, we were talking before, David Weiss and others. If you could just mention their names, and people can actually go and research. David Weiss came up with this Apple app that is excellent. So if you could share some of those names. And there was a guy, was trying to think of his name. He actually did photography, fake photography. His name is Siebel or something like that. And, huh? What? Yes, Bart Siebel. Okay, I'm sure you're familiar with him. So if you could share some of those names, people could just jot those down and they can do a search, and there's a plethora of information out there.
For sure. Yeah. So you named the most important one, probably, I would say, is Dave Weiss. So yeah, I know he's going to be stoked about this. I'm going to plug his app. The Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. It does answer all the questions. So if you have questions, go to the App Store, type in Flat Earth, it'll pop up. You download it, there's a little question mark, and you click on it, and every question that you're super confident that no Flat Earther knows has been thoroughly answered for years, I can assure you. So believe it or not, we didn't want to be Flat Earthers. We thought it sounded crazy. We had the same questions. So I would say Dave Weiss, that's deep inside the rabbit hole, DIRTH. Obviously, there's also Jaron from Jaronism. The first person I heard was Eric Dubé. And just a disclaimer, I don't agree with any of these people on everything, but that's what being an open-minded truther is. Rob Skiba, who did pass away with the sham that happened a few years ago, let's just say the protocol wasn't particularly great and seemed it was almost engineered to inflate numbers of death. So that's very sad. But Rob Skiba really will break it down from a scriptural perspective. There's also Kingdom and Context, Sean Griffin, and there's Hanging on His Words. And those three people really break down the scriptural understanding of the earth. And like I said, Jaron from Jaronism has been in this since the beginning. Now there's so much in Flat Earth, so there's also the super technical people. That's who I like to hang out with. I'm kind of nerdy. So we have Alan from Space Audits. You can look up Space Audits. Yeah, just completely buries relativity. And then we have Shane St. Pierre from Anti-Disinformation League. So the real ADL. Edward Henry. We have all kinds of truthers. You also have a lot of the NASA footage I showed is from a guy named Flat Earth and Coffee. And so I try to encourage him. I think he does good work. People get discouraged because they get so censored. I've been kicked off Venmo, PayPal, Airbnb. Flat Earth's so stupid they got to kick you off Airbnb. So yeah, that's a few names. I would say find one of us, you can find all of us, right? If you just type in Flat Earth, you're done. You're gonna get nothing but hit pieces.
Well, not exactly. Yeah, you're gonna get hit.
Yeah, you're gonna get them people telling you boats go over the curve. We'll get into that. But yeah, there's a few, man. There's a few. Just get to one of us, and normally you can find all of us. And I will reiterate, Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app is a really good resource. It has all the different content creators on there, all your questions answered. It shows you visualizations, etc. Because we are fighting censorship. So cool. Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah.
Yes. All truths eventually lie. All lies eventually die. The vaccine lie is quickly coming to its end, I hope. But how do you see this ending in terms of what will cause the NASA lie to unravel, and what is the straw that eventually breaks the camel's back on this?
Whew, really good question. Not even one I think I know the answer to, but I will say I think that they know that it's unraveling, and they've already created a plan B. It's very naive to think that they're just like hoping it doesn't unravel. The CIA doesn't operate that way. So I think that's what SpaceX is. I hate to break it to you, Elon Musk is not your hero. He's a liar. Yeah. And you can actually look up a video of Greg Reese, Elon Musk completely exposed. Also, if you're wondering, you can just go look at X, and in order to get monetized, you have to give your biometric data to an Israeli company tied to over 8,600 Israeli military operations and directly tied to Mossad. And so I think that kind of gives you the answer as to whether or not he can be trusted. I also know someone that knows him personally. I won't plug his name, but he's a very, very famous producer. Music producer, said he's talked to Elon, straight up confronted him about flat Earth, said Elon completely freaked out, cussed him out, and blocked him. And like I said, Sam Tripoli said that Elon told his friend the moon landing is completely fake. So to cover that, I think they're using SpaceX because it sounds good, right? It's like, oh, it's a private company. And so they're going to admit that NASA's lying. NASA doctored global, quote unquote, temperature recordings to the 50s to push the global warming scam. People have found out that NASA is not credible and that they're lying, and obviously I just showed you just a fraction of the evidence. So I think that's their move. I don't think they'll ever come out and say, oh, turns out the Earth is actually stationary and flat and enclosed and built by an amazing creator and you're special and take your... They won't do that. They'll say, oh, well, maybe Electric Universe is right. Maybe the Earth is in the center. I don't even think they can say that. They're going to come up with a new lie, I would say. And that's why it's super important that before that happens and before AI can create a video of anything you can think of and you can't tell if it's real or not, the truth should get out now. So I guess that would be my answer. I think they've already been busted. The censorship has held it back for a long time. And that's why people need to stop being scared to talk about things like this. And maybe then it wouldn't wreck our lives. Yeah.
Hi.
Hey.
My question is about the Challenger in 1985. That blew up with the crew, with the teacher on it, the educator.
Yeah.
There's a theory that they were never on the plane, and that they actually have been found alive.
Yep.
Actually, on Facebook, they're professors. They look exactly alike. What do you have to say about that?
Swinging for the fences. This normally triggers people. Maybe we've gotten a lot out of that realm, but okay, I will say I was in a documentary called Level with me, and it completely exposes that. The Challenger hoax completely exposed, but like she said, of course, that was a very big deal. Supposedly, NASA astronauts died on the Challenger explosion. They put everyday people in there. There was a teacher. The government passed a law that every school had to play it for their students. You may not know that. And it was trauma-based mind control. Everyone, like, oh, it's a teacher. Then they saw her blow up. And it justified them not going to space anymore. I will say Justin Harvey, my buddy, he was actually at the Brevard County Commission office with me. He got kicked out for exposing this very thing. So if you look up, it's probably hard to find it. He got 500,000 views on TikTok and his account got banned immediately. But yeah, Justin Harvey just started exposing that, and it went kind of viral. And you can go to Level with me to check it out. But basically the summary is every one of those astronauts have been caught still alive. And if you look into the idea of a doppelganger, so someone that looks like you, it's very, very rare. And when you look into, there was a pair of twins on there. If you look into the idea of looking like you and having the same name, it's incredibly rare. In fact, only one other case in the last 120 years can be found, and that's supposedly what led to the development of fingerprinting. This is multiple cases, lookalikes, same name, same age. And one of them is a professor at Yale. One of them is a retired professor, etc. So they've actually been confronted, and it's in the Level with Me documentary. And the teacher just takes off running when we asked her about it. And then when we asked the Michael Scott guy, he was like, "Yeah, he does look a lot like me, but I promise that's not me. I promise." So. Long story short, yeah, it's statistically impossible. Every one of those astronauts that were on there have exact lookalikes, exact same name, exact same age. It was trauma-based mind control, and it justified them not being able to go to space for a long time. And now, obviously, they know people are fed up with it, still want them to go. So, yeah, look into it, I will say. I know it's an emotionally charged subject, but hey, man, you know, truth doesn't care about your emotions.
Hello. During the Cold War, I find it hard to understand how the Soviet Union didn't take this to a huge advantage, knowing that we had a fake moon landing. And NASA is separate from their space program, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why did that fail? Like, why would they have kept silent?
Yeah, good question. I will say that's what placated me for a long time. So I found out that the moon landing was fake, and then I thought, but no, the Soviet Union would tell us, and then I'm like, well, maybe they couldn't find out. And then obviously you can get into arguments. Well, no, they were monitoring us. They could find out. Well, you wouldn't be very good at war if you could let your enemy literally know everything. But I will say, this is what I currently think, because I've now found out that the Earth is flat. There's international cooperation, including the Antarctic Treaty. These countries work together. They pretend to be enemies so that they can get control of their populations. And so if you look back, basically, the Soviet Union was the first to go to space. They sent the first person to space. They sent the first satellite to space. They sent the first monkey to space. So they got to tell their population, we were the first ones to space. We got to tell our population we were the first that landed on the moon. And so when you step back and look at it a little different, which is that, oh, well, these are orchestrated. I mean, the Cold War was 40 years long. It was just a propaganda war. It was a war on your mind. And that would be my answer. And this is why I kind of use the analogy of the mob. Say one mob the feds start investigating a mob. The other mafia is not going to run up to the feds and be like, here's how it all works, because then they'll get caught. And so I think they wouldn't want anyone to know that space could be faked. I think they had some type of agreement probably, but even if they didn't, they wouldn't have snitched on them is kind of my take. And one thing I know for sure is something had to happen because the moon landing's fake, right? So. Okay, yeah. So Operation Mockingbird is declassified. CIA completely infiltrated every major news station and media outlet and put liaisons from the CIA inside of it to control the narrative and propagandize the American public. Declassified. Most of the news anchors you watch are CIA agents. Not even a conspiracy, it's admitted.
So this is a follow-up on the question regarding the Challenger. I was at Boeing for 36 and a half years. That very day, I was an engineer. I was supposed to go to the Museum of Flight and meet with John Glenn for a presentation on NASA. What is so disgusting is the remorse and the grief that went through the community based on that lie. I mean, I'm here to testify that that went to the bone. And to just be lied like that is literally disgusting. So I experienced that firsthand.
Wow, nice. She's not suicidal. Bit of a Boeing joke, obviously, but no, yeah, I agree with you, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. So I appreciate your comment, and I think that's trauma-based mind control. When someone is in a state of trauma, you can tell them to do anything. If people heard gunshots, you know what's going to happen? First of all, everyone's going to turn to the people at open carry, shout to them, and they're going to just not think logically. They're going to freak out. They're going to start running. It's, again, documented and declassified. They put you in a state of trauma. They can manipulate what you believe, and yeah, that's what it is. I agree. It's absolutely disgusting that they did that, and they need to be held accountable, so we have to raise awareness.
Thank you, Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to remind everyone that Austin, this is what he does as a living. And so I just want to mention that if you guys feel so impressed at any point, just look for ways to support his work. You can find him on pretty much any social media platform, and we just appreciate having him in our little corner here of the Treasure Valley today. So let's give him a little shout out and some love today. Yeah. And I'll hop back. I'll hop back on the mic in probably about 15, 20 minutes to make sure we can get all ready for the 7:30 presentation. We may start just a little longer, make sure he gets time to eat. I'm going to just finish with this one thought. He keeps mentioning the kids, and I want to just say, I think this is one of the reasons why this is so important. We have the ability to ask critical thinking questions, and we're going to be held responsible for that, to not just sit and blindly take whatever is put before us. However, kids don't necessarily have that capacity. They're looking to us to tell them the truth. And I feel like we need to take this very seriously. And I think sometimes this is the most common question, why does it matter? Because this stuff is one thing, but when we get deeper into these layers of cosmology, the most common question that comes up is, why does it matter? So why does it matter? Because it's at some point it gets a little bit like, whoa, everything is not what I thought it was. And so I think it matters. Well, there's many layers to this. I don't want to answer because I know Austin will probably go into this, but I would say as we unpeel the layers of why it matters, remember the kids, right? Okay, so I'll leave it there for now. All right. All right, everyone. We're going to jump into our next session, Flat Earth 101. If you haven't already, be prepared to enter a head spin for those who haven't taken a dive into this topic yet. Tomorrow, Austin is going to be with us again to take a dive into even further topics around cosmology, and he'll talk about that. But I love this topic because I think it's one of the ways that we can start to see some of the webs of lies that have been spun around us and other ways that we can become free. So that's part of the topics that we want to discuss in this room today. So again, I just want to introduce, for those who are not aware, Austin Whitsitt is coming to us from Florida, and he has been just a wealth of knowledge in answering or researching, I think, things that may be seen as out there topics, but that we do truly believe are important to have for discussion. And he has devoted his life's work to uncovering these hidden agendas and lies around this specific topic of cosmology, NASA and its foundations, flat Earth, and these topics. So I want to just say again, let's give him our support. If you get a chance, you can follow him on various forms of social media. I believe Whitsitt Gets It is one of his names that he goes by. And so just to look him up and pass the word, spread the word along so people can start doing their own research around this topic as well. Without further ado, we'll bring Austin on.
All right. So now for the topic that gets everyone triggered. So I like to say, yeah, the Earth is flat. Don't make it weird. That's what I say. Because it shouldn't be a big deal, right? If I'm crazy and stupid, then okay, cool. Chill out. All right, so this is Flat Earth 101. It was really tough for me to figure out what all to put in here because there's so much information. So I'm just disclaimer, there are many slides. I have a tendency to go a bit fast. I'm sorry in advance. We're open for questions afterwards. And yeah, if you're not familiar with the subject, just brace yourself. I thought it was wild when I first heard it as well. So, all right, let's get into it. Flat Earth 101. So for one, this is typically the way that flat Earth is represented. In the mainstream, it's a disk flying through space. It's just a flat planet with all the other spherical planets, and water falls off the side, and you think it's a disk in space. No flat earther thinks that. And so from the beginning, you should wonder, why is it that they have to misrepresent what flat earthers think? It's stupid, right? So that's what they do whenever they're lying and someone's talking about the truth. So obviously making fun of this is called a straw man fallacy. I won't go too debate heavy on you guys, but this isn't what we think. This is ridiculous. Every flat earther would agree it's ridiculous. We don't think the Earth's a flat disk flying through space with spherical planets. So, of course, to address the obvious, almost everyone in here, if they don't think the Earth's a globe, they at one point did. We were all told the Earth is a globe in a classroom when we were really young. And we were also told that Santa existed. So the fact we're told something and believe it because of adults doesn't make it true. So I just want everyone to think about that for a second. Be honest with yourself. Why do you think the Earth's a globe? We know why, because you were told that from 5 up, if not sooner. Everyone thinks that, and that's pretty much it. It's not much deeper than that. In fact, every classroom, there's some kid that raises their hands and they say, well, why don't we fall off of it? Oh, silly student. There's gravity. What's gravity? It's what keeps you on the ball. Okay, when's recess? So that's how it works. We all know that's how it works, but I want everyone to think about this. I'm going to break a little bit of logic down here, and I don't want to get too heavy on it, but basically, let's say this. Let's go ahead and cover this. What you experience is not that the Earth is a spinning globe. No one in here has ever experienced that. When you go out to a body of water, it's flat. When you see the horizon, it's horizontal. That's why it's called horizon, which is part of the word horizontal. No one's ever felt the Earth moving. So objectively, what you experience based on observation and experience and empirical evidence is that the Earth is flat and stationary. Now, you might think that's not the case, and they claim, oh, that's just an illusion. It's so big you can't tell. Well, maybe so, right? But on its face, what you experience is the Earth is not moving. The only person in here that might think the Earth's moving has had a little bit too much to drink. So we know the Earth's not moving intuitively. So this is a bit of a timeline. I have a whole stream on YouTube. That's Whitsitt Gets It on YouTube. I break this all down in detail. I'm not going to be able to do that tonight. We're going to breeze through it. But I break down the whole globe deception, the belief that we're on a globe. And this is it. And this is mainstream narratives, right? So you have the idea of the globe supposedly popping up around 350. And that's when you'll get people saying, stupid flat earthers, we've known the Earth was a globe for thousands of years. The truth is that everyone in the world knew the Earth was a flat, stationary plane enclosed in a firmament and everything moved around it for all of recorded history. And even if you believe the story that the Greeks came up with the idea it was a globe, they were considered weirdos. They were like a random weird minority. Side note, they were pedophiles. I don't trust them at all. Who cares what they have to say about the Earth? So just to address the misnomer that everyone thought the Earth was a globe, it's not true at all. In fact, even in China in the 1850s, it was popularly held and known the Earth was flat. And then the Jesuit priest went over there and convinced them it was a globe. So that's just to address that's a lie. But you have the idea that Aristotle looked at the moon and said, that looks like a ball. The Earth must be a ball. And then he said, oh, ships disappear. That must be because the Earth's a ball. And that's the official story. So we'll breeze through all of this. These are very intricate, specific things. Flat Earth is certainly not people that just live in their mom's basement that don't understand things. It's actually people that do diligent research. So I don't have time to go into all of these, but this is what I think is important and I want you guys to know. So we're going to start at 1945, and we talked about that in the last one, Operation Paperclip. It's where we brought Nazis over here, specifically the SS officer of the Nazi regime, Werner von Braun, and put him in charge of space exploration. NASA was working with Disney at its inception, and that's because they are a movie company. So I covered that 1915 NACA was founded, and that was the predecessor to NASA. What is interesting is they were part of what's called the International Geophysical Year, and that's where every major country got together and said, okay, we're going to monitor the North Pole and the South Pole, quote unquote. We're not going to let people freely and privately explore there, which is interesting. So the reason NACA is important is the deception of monitoring the Earth and who travels on the Earth existed long before 1958, long before NASA, and that was actually done by NACA. Something called the International Geophysical Year was 1957, the year before NASA. So we covered that Operation Paperclip if you weren't here. SS officer, Nazi regime, brought over here with many engineers and quote-unquote scientists. They all basically admitted and came clean to all the crimes of the Nazis. They were all tortured, though, prior to doing that, and you may not know that. So he came over and said, sure, dude, tell me what to do. He claimed that he took us to the moon with his V-2 rocket. We covered that. On his tombstone was Psalm 19:1, which says that you can't go to space because there's something called the firmament. So very next year, 1946, there was something called Operation Highjump. That's where the United States explored the Antarctic region, founding the first American base in Antarctica called Little America. This was led and organized by Admiral Richard Byrd. Richard Byrd was then on an interview on national television a few years later. He said, it's astonishing to me that there is landmass as big as the continental United States that no one knows about and remains unexplored. And there's tons of resources, and he thinks it's very important that people go and see what's there and beyond. That's Admiral Byrd, who led Operation Highjump. What's also interesting about this is if you know the history of the Nazis, we won't get too far into that rabbit hole, but you have the swastika. The swastika is actually about the constellation, the Big Dipper. Throughout the year, it has 4 seasons. That's what it's about. It's existed for thousands of years. It's also a symbol of peace. It's nothing to do with what you think it is, according to the mainstream. It's about the Big Dipper. That's why it looks like that's the shape of the Big Dipper, and it changes throughout the year and gives you 4 seasons. You can track the seasons by the position of the Big Dipper. Okay. All that to say, they were very obsessed with ancient knowledge. That's why they picked that as their symbol. It actually gets very weird and occultic, and they believe they track back to what's called the star people, and that's also why they use the symbol of the stars. And don't know how ready everyone is for that, but yeah, they believe that entities came from the sky, and they were offspring of the children that they created. Crazy, not crazy, they believed it. So they were obsessed with ancient civilizations, and then they became obsessed with Antarctica. So if you've researched the Nazis at all, they were infatuated with Antarctica, made many trips there, had undercover bases there. The CIA declassified documents talk about how they were obsessed with Antarctica. So what a coincidence that we bring the Nazis over here, and then all of a sudden we're obsessed with Antarctica. The very next year, so it's called Operation Highjump. All this is declassified, easily verifiable. So we go to Antarctica, we start exploring. The very next year, the CIA was founded. So that's probably a coincidence. So the National Security Act of 1947 established the CIA as an independent civilian intelligence agency within the executive branch. The act charged CIA with coordinating the nation's intelligence activities and, among other duties, collecting, evaluating, and disseminating intelligence affecting national security. As the great question alluded to earlier, they actually infiltrated all of mainstream media. They put CIA agents inside of it to propagandize and lie to you, and that's called Operation Mockingbird. If you're watching CNN or Fox News or MSNBC or ABC, you're watching the CIA, and that is a fact. And if you can't come to grips with that, well, you're lying to yourself. It's just a fact. So, the CIA has smuggled drugs, has been involved in human trafficking, has been involved in regime changes, has created all kinds of wars and infiltrated governments and created all kinds of fake opposition groups to start wars to infiltrate that company or that country with centralized banking. If you look at the CIA, they're as corrupt as they come. They were founded the year after we went and explored Antarctica. So I just wanted to put things into perspective for you guys. We have some very bad actors all around this Antarctica situation. 1948, side note, Wernher von Braun authored a science fiction book called Project Mars. And in this science fiction book, the main character's title is Elon, and he founds the first civilization on Mars. Well, what does Elon Musk claim he's about to do? It's just a movie. It's just a script that they tell the public. They wrote it in science fiction books. The moon landing was predicted by Jules Verne, another Freemason in the late 1800s, verbatim, exactly where it would be on the moon. Everything about the moon landing was predicted in a science fiction book. Meteorites predicted in a science fiction book before they were allegedly discovered. The Titanic was prophesied or predicted in the Titan, the science fiction book. So what you'll start to find out is that there are groups of people, they write science fiction books, and then they say, okay, let's tell the public that really happened. So that's what happened here. You can think it's a coincidence, but I think it's relevant because of Wernher von Braun, obviously, like I said. Elon founds the first civilization in Mars, written in 1948. 1952, the NSA was founded. So right around this time that we bring Nazis over here, we start popping off intel groups. And if you don't know, the NSA monitors every single square inch of your life. Obviously, Edward Snowden came out, tried to tell us, and he's on the run to this day. So just threw that in there because it's interesting. So you have 1955, Operation Deep Freeze, and that's the code name given to a series of U.S. missions to Antarctica. This led into the International Geophysical Year in 1957 and 58, which was a collaborative effort among 40 nations regarding the North and South Pole, specifically that private and free exploration was too dangerous, should be monitored. All major countries agreed, we're going to not let people privately explore there. This was actually basically spearheaded by NACA, because again, 1955, NASA did not exist yet. So we'll have to skip through some of the details. You should definitely look into the history of flat Earth and how the deception began. I'm giving you a brief overview, but they were still obsessed with Antarctica many years after we brought the Nazis. This is a decade later. So, 1957, the DEW system is founded. That's called the Distant Early Warning Line. It's a system of radar stations in the northern Arctic regions of Canada, Alaska, Greenland, and Iceland, where the U.S. set up trip lines to monitor any activity north of the 55-degree north latitude. It's now called the North Warning System, which it was updated to that in 1988, still in place today. So a lot of people know, oh, you can't freely and privately explore Antarctica. You also can't go to the North Pole. Now, of course, the Flat Earth says that's basically the center of everything. That's where everything is spinning. Ancient maps said that there was the Mercator map that you were all shown in school. His original map shows a North Pole with 4 land masses and rivers and a mountain in the middle. So they took that part out, but then they taught you the rest of the map. And so something is going on at the north. And if you understand a flat Earth, you take the compass and you're going to go east to west around the North Pole. And of course, Polaris is over the North Pole and everything spins around it. So the North Pole is very significant. In the globe, it's not significant. It's water. It's ice. It's insignificant. Russia has worked with us with the Northern Warning System. They do not let private and free exploration go to the North Pole. So that should be perplexing to you that it's 2024. You can't freely explore the Earth, north or south. We know why, though. 1957, this is a declassified CIA document that talks about the firmament. Wait a minute. What's going on? So they talk about actually mapping out the firmament and knowing different zenith distances. Zenith is the location directly above your head. So they're saying the distance above your head to the firmament changes based on where you are on the Earth, which sounds a lot like a dome, right? Now, the CIA has mapped this out and says that, in fact, their approximation methods were proven accurate. So the CIA says that there's a dome over the Earth, and they've mapped it out in 1957. They specifically used the word firmament. You've obviously never heard of this. The very next year, 1958, NASA was founded. Okay, so what does NASA say? Oh, well, we're going to tell you what's up above you, and we're going to go to space, and we're going to tell you how it all works. So it's very interesting. It's the same year as the International Geophysical Year. The government has a document. It wasn't declassified till 2000, talking about how there's a firmament. And actually, a Russian scientist figured out how to map it out perfectly. And then the very next year, we have NASA founded. We covered them in the previous presentation, of course. We also have the next year, after Antarctica was founded, the Antarctic Treaty was signed. And of course, that is no free and private exploration to Antarctica, still in place today, not even up for review until 2045. And so people ask questions like, why didn't the Soviet Union tell on the United States? Well, what about China? What about all these people? Are they in on it? They're all in on the Antarctic Treaty. So they aren't going to war over a huge piece of land and resources. So that doesn't add up if they're enemies. They've all agreed to it. In fact, Iran recently said, we're going to back out of that. We think we have, entitlement to Antarctica. You know what happened recently, maybe. The Iranian president died in a helicopter crash. Side note, Slovakian prime minister came out and said, I'm going to expose the pandemic and everything that happened with it, including the bioweapon called medicine. And then one of his cabinet members said the Earth is actually flat. And then he got shot 9 times in the street the next day. So this is a very real thing. So anyway, every single country has agreed, major country that has power to do anything, that they won't let you freely and privately explore it. I threw this in here, another intel agency, 1961, Defense Intelligence Agency. So all of a sudden our government's freaking out. They're making laws and rules you can't freely explore. They're creating all kinds of intel agencies to monitor everything that you do. So a little pattern recognition will tell you what's going on. Next year, 1962, Operation Fishbowl. It's part of a bigger operation called, this is all declassified, of course, called Operation Dominique, which translates in Latin to of the Lord. So this is Operation Fishbowl of the Lord. What does that mean? They're shooting rockets, high altitude, quote unquote, nuclear tests. We'll get into the nuclear bomb fiasco. That's a hoax, but it doesn't matter. They're shooting weapons at high altitudes, and then they call that Operation Fishbowl of the Lord. And they find out that the bombs explode at certain heights. 1962. You couldn't make it up, bro. You couldn't make it up. You know what else happened in 62 right after that? JFK said we're going to the moon. Same year, like a month later. And we covered this. He said, oh, we're going to go not because it's easy, but because it's hard, or whatever. Now, we know what happened to JFK. He got assassinated. The CIA was directly involved. Mossad was directly involved, called out AIPAC, called out Israel, called out a bunch of things you're not supposed to call out, called out the Federal Reserve. He's a little too big for his britches. Arguably found out he couldn't go to the moon and would blow the whistle on it. So we'll move forward here, and then you have the Apollo missions in 69. We landed on the moon allegedly. Then 72, the last one, where they slingshot around the moon and take the picture of Earth. And there it is. Debate over. The blue marble, the infamous blue marble. So this shut it down. So when people say, well, what is exposing NASA matter? Well, they're the ones that supposedly proved the Earth's a ball. So there is the history there, so you know they don't claim to even have a real picture of the Earth since then until like 2015. The default wallpaper on all the iPhones was a globe. And admittedly, Robert Simmons, the guy who did that and was contracted by NASA, said it's completely photoshopped. We take pictures at high altitude with planes. We put it together with a flat map. We then wrap it around a sphere. And then we come in and we paint it with Photoshop and paint. Direct quote, basically. Paraphrased quote from NASA themselves telling you that the default wallpaper in 2002 was a cartoon. Why would you have to do that? Why would you not just use the real pictures? Why don't you take some more real pictures? Because there aren't real pictures of the Earth being a globe. It's all fake. This is probably a painting that they took a picture of. So with Flat Earth 101, I could have gone one of two ways. I guess I could have broke down a lot of the basic questions that you'll have. We'll get into that in a bit, but I want to break down how we know the Earth is flat, and it doesn't really matter if we know how everything else works or not. Okay? So if the Earth is a sphere, then it has specific things that have to be true. It has to be a certain size, it has to be spinning. If it's not a sphere, then what is it? If the Earth's not curving, if this table's not curving anywhere, what is it? It's flat. Okay, I don't need to know how far away the stars are to know that the surface of the Earth is not curving. And I'm pointing it out because that's what always happens. This information gets very uncomfortable. People don't like to hear it, so they default to, well, then how would this work? How do the eclipses work? Well, what are the stars? What are the planets? How far away are they? How far away is the bottom of the ocean? Like, bro, we don't have to know how everything in the universe works. It's insane that people were brainwashed to think that you could know how everything in the universe works. Just pointing that out because I already know that's how it works. People don't face the information and the evidence for what it is. They just try to find some question they think Flat Earth can't answer, and then the Earth becomes a globe again. That's not how it works. So claim number one, because we covered that the default position is that the Earth is flat and stationary. That's what you experience. Just like how I have this water in this cup, and if I turn it, it keeps finding level and being flat. This is called fluid dynamics and fluid statics, just basic physics. Water finds its level. That's why we put fluid in levels when we build things, because water finds its level. Okay, so that's the default position, is that the Earth is flat and stationary. We covered that. So there's another claim that says that's all an illusion, everything's the opposite. So let's cover it. Claim number one is that the Earth is spinning 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, revolving around the sun 66,600 miles per hour on a tilted axis of 23.4 degrees, which taken from a 90-degree angle is, of course, 66.6. So we'll get more into that tomorrow, but also the North and South Arctic circles are at 66.6 degrees. Gravity was discovered in 1666, 666 newtons, or 6.66 in, and it goes on and on. The supposed circumference of the globe Earth in nautical miles is 6 times 6 times 600. The diameter of the moon is 6 times 6 times 60. The amount of 666s in the globe model must be just amazing coincidences. So, maybe it's a signature of someone, huh? So that's the first claim. Second claim is that the Earth is a sphere with a radius value of 3,959 miles. Now, this is 101, but 101 of Flat Earth, you gotta figure this stuff out. Radius is the distance from the center to the outside of a circle or a sphere. It's called a radius. They claim the Earth has that radius. That's very, very important, and we'll get into it. Third claim, the Earth is a sphere in the vacuum of space. These are all cartoons. Notice, by the way, I looked for real ones. They don't exist. They're all cartoons. So that's how you know it's real. So these are the primary three claims we're going to test. The heliocentric model has the burden of proof for these positive claims. Reiterating that because everyone thinks about this backwards. They think, oh no, but how does Flat Earth answer this, 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 and this? You think everything I experience is backwards and it's all an illusion and the Creator tricked me. You have the burden of proof to prove that everything's the opposite. This is another cartoon, if you didn't notice. All right, so claim number 1, that the Earth is moving. And again, just to reiterate so you know exactly how much it's moving, allegedly. It's spinning 1,037 miles per hour east of the equator. Most people know this stuff. It's actually wobbling 3 different ways while it's spinning. It's then orbiting around the sun, 66,600 miles per hour. And then it's actually going through the galaxy at 500,000 miles per hour with the sun. The galaxy then goes through space 1.2 million miles per hour. Supposedly, we're experiencing all of those motions, but you can go out, it can be completely still. You can balance rocks, pebbles on top of each other 20 feet high. But actually, all this is going on. They will claim, well, you just can't tell. It's magic. That's what I call relativity. So, all right, I'm going to try to breeze through this. This is more technical stuff. You can go to my channel to learn more about it, but this is an autobiography. No physical experiment ever proved that the Earth is actually in motion. Lincoln Barnett in The Universe and Dr. Einstein. No one's ever proved the Earth is moving. This is Einstein himself telling you that the sun being at rest or the Earth moving or the sun moving and the Earth being at rest are equally valid, and you can't prove that the Earth is moving. Here he is again saying every time we try to develop a test on the Earth to prove the Earth is moving, it failed miserably. We can't prove it. In fact, my theory of relativity had to explain away the fact that everything shows the Earth is not moving. Here he is saying that no optical experiment can prove that the Earth is moving. I'm going to breeze this. All this is very important and somewhat technical. This is something called Michelson-Morley. One of the most famous experiments in all of physics, changed the entire world of physics. Very simply, they shot lasers. Well, they weren't lasers yet. Light beams perpendicular to each other. If the Earth was moving through space, it would have taken one of the light beams longer to get to the receiver than the other one. Very simply, the light had to catch up to the Earth if it was really moving, and that would cause them to intersect like that, the light beams. Okay, so this is what was expected, and this is what was actually observed. So this was a major problem, because this was over 10 times more sensitive than it needed to be. This is where you get Einstein. We won't even get into how insane that person was, but you know, married his first cousin, wanted to hook up with her daughter, was an ethnic supremacist, so on, so on. So, doesn't mean his physics is wrong, I guess. Here's another very famous physicist, an author, Ronald Clark. He's explaining what happened after that test was that they had a serious problem, and there was only a few options, one of which was, he phrases it as scuttling the whole Copernican theory, which is the idea that the Earth is flying around the sun. It's not special, it's insignificant. So basically he's saying, one showed that the Earth wasn't moving, as it says here, was standing still, but that wasn't even an option. Why is that not an option? Isn't that how we experience the world? Isn't that how we build everything? Isn't that literally what we've seen since we were born? How is it not an option? That's not science. Anyway, going forward, this is more technical, but they claim that the apparatus contracted and got smaller, so it looked like the Earth wasn't moving, but if you went to try to measure it, it's going to look like it's the same size. I want everyone to grasp how insanely ridiculous that is. It's like me sitting at this table, shrank, but if you come measure it, it's going to measure like it's the same size. But trust me, bro, it got smaller. You just can't tell it got smaller. And that's because it's flying through space right now. So it's getting smaller in the direction of motion. But try to measure it, well, your ruler's going to get smaller too. So it's going to look like it's the same size. This is official mainstream physics, top-line academic sources. This is why people won't debate it, by the way. So here's Einstein straight up saying, well, if these tests are true and we are detecting a little bit of spin, then my entire theory is wrong, collapses like a house of cards, etc. So this is supposed to be 101. This is much more complicated. Long story short, here are all the other tests that have proven that Michelson-Morley shows the Earth is stationary. There's a drift. You can measure the sky moving. There are no answers. No answers. Most people kind of default and think, oh, well, I just don't get this stuff. There's a physicist or scientist that's smarter than me that's done it or understands it. Well, tell them to hit me up, because I've talked to many of them, and they admit they don't have an answer for these things. So to summarize the motion part, obviously it's simple. You don't experience the Earth moving. Here's Einstein saying, when I was a student, Michelson proved that everything on the Earth happens as if the Earth is in a state of rest, and you'll never notice anything on Earth as if it moves. It doesn't move, huh? Okay, so we haven't fulfilled the burden of proof the Earth is tilted, wobbling, spinning, revolving, flying through space. That's just a made-up claim. So claim number 2 is that the Earth is a sphere. This is where it all gets really uncomfortable. So if it is, it has to curve at a certain rate. Like a basketball. The basketball curves the size of the basketball, right? So here's the depiction of the radius. The globe Earth model makes very specific claims about the size of the Earth. If that is wrong, the entire model is wrong. The reason is day and night cycle uses it, distances on the Earth uses it, gravity uses it, supposed missions to space use it. Every single part of the globe Earth model uses that number right there, 3,959 miles. If that number's wrong, the entire model's wrong. I don't need to know what galaxies are, how far away they are. I don't need to know what's under the Earth. We know this can't be true, right? It's very important to rewire your brain because people are like, well, but they told me that looking back in time and that the sun are different stars and what's your answer? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. If the Earth is a globe, it has to be this size. So let's test it out. So, and make sure everyone understands, if it's a ball, it's curving at a certain rate based on that size. When you look out, you're going to see a hump or like a mountain blocking you. The analogy would be, if I walked around the corner to the bathroom, could you see me still? Of course not. Could you look through the wall and see me? Not unless you're Superman or something, right? So you can't see me. That's what the Earth would be doing. There would be a mountain in front of you blocking what you see at a specific rate. That's called the horizon, the geometric horizon. So the Earth should block you in the distance. So they told us, well, boats go over the curve of the Earth. So I'll bring this back right here. You can see the boat's nowhere to be found. It must be behind the curve of the Earth. Oh, look, there's the boat again. Boats don't go over the curve of the Earth. That's not why they disappear. You can zoom them back in. With binoculars, with cameras, with telescopes, you can see them again. Oh, the bottom of the boat's hidden. Yeah, it's in water. So, and this is supposedly how they first proved it. And if you Google it, it'll still tell you that boats prove the Earth's a ball. That is a lie. That's not true. So, to kind of understand, if you can envision looking down the end of a long hallway, it'll look like the ceiling's coming down, the ground's coming up, and it's converging. That's perspective. And then what happens is they converge to a point and they give you what's called the horizon. So the horizon isn't physical. It is not a curve. It's not something that you can stand on. It's just apparent. It moves around. Okay, now on the globe Earth, it's physical. It doesn't move. It's blocking you. I hope that landed. Here is a video time lapse of the horizon moving. So is the Earth breathing in and out? Is it getting bigger? It's not. The horizon is just an optical place. It's not a real place. It's just based on atmospheric conditions and perspective, it moves around. So here's the horizon has been seen over 10 times further than it needs to be if the Earth's a globe. So if we pause it right here, you'll see that the horizon, this camera is like 1.5 feet off the ground. So it's basically on the ground. And the horizon should be at 1.2 miles away. These oil rigs are 10 miles away, and the horizon's behind them. That is physically impossible on a globe. And people will make up all kinds of excuses. It doesn't matter. It's basic geometry. The horizon has to be in front of the oil rigs. And no any magical invocation of refraction picks up horizons, lifts it behind a physical object, but doesn't affect the physical object. That's not how it works. That's just a made-up story. So this right here refutes the globe. Here's a contrasted, higher quality image of that. You can see the horizon's clearly behind the oil rigs. The way that you can tell is the oil rig on the left is blocking the horizon. So obviously the horizon is behind the furthest oil rig. Again, at 1 foot off the ground, you should see the curve of the Earth at 1 mile, and that's over 10 miles away. This is physically impossible. This is why flat earthers exist, by the way. They went and looked at the Earth. It's going to get a little more uncomfortable, though. So these mountains are 255 miles away from the observer, and the observer is at 9,824 feet. There should be 12,800 feet of curvature blocking those mountains. That means there should be over 2 miles of vertical curvature blocking those mountains. You shouldn't see them. They should be below 2 miles of Earth curvature. Do you guys know how long a mile is? That's a lot. If there are 2 miles of Earth curvature, why am I just looking out, seeing the mountains right in front of me? Now, this is infrared, and the tallest mountain in this picture should be an additional mile below the curve of the Earth. This is a major problem if the Earth's a sphere. It is not possible. The Earth would have to be a sphere of over a 250,000 mile radius. It is not. So there's one observation that's direct refutation. Here is actually in the Guinness Book of World Record for the longest line of sight observation ever. Now, you guys know what line of sight is, right? That means I have to look in a direct line drawn from my eye connects to what I'm seeing. This is how the military uses weapons, for example, LOS, line of sight. This is in the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest observation ever, longest line of sight, 275 miles away. So the observer is 9 miles, or 9,000 feet up. So the mountain should be over 3 miles below the horizon. But the mountains are right there. Now, I got a question. If the earth were flat, what would you see if you looked out to see the mountains? Would you maybe just see the mountains? That's why you see them. I don't know how else to put that, but it's pretty simple. This should be over 3 miles below. This should be over 2.5 miles below. They are not. They are observed. Now, here's the Canigou Mountains observed with the sunset. I'm going to play a short video to explain this. But basically 2 times a year, based on the sun sets in a different place throughout the year, it sets behind these mountains, and you can book a flight right now to fly out there in October, and you can know that you're going to see those mountains. And the way you know that is because the sun's going to set behind them and backlight them. Those mountains should be completely thousands of feet below the Earth's curvature. And what do they claim? They claim that it's refraction. So we'll just go ahead and address the elephant in the room if you looked into it. This can't be refraction. That's a shadow. Refraction is about the bending of light. This is the absence of light. It's a shadow. Shadows can't bend due to refraction. They're not light. They're the absence of light. This is physically impossible on a globe, and there's actually no way around it. Even worse than that, you're claiming that refraction just conspires with the Earth on those 2 certain days the sun sets behind the mountains to make the Earth look flat. So we're getting really crazy. Like, who's the conspiracy theorist again? You know, like, this can be reliably observed. So I'm going to play, I don't know how long this is. I'm going to play a couple minutes because I think he breaks it down for you just so you know the evidence. Maybe I shouldn't actually, though. I'll play a little bit of it.
Times of the year.
Okay, let's check it out.
Canigou is a mountain located in France that has a top elevation of 9,134 feet. Twice a year, in February and October, many people go to Marseille, France, to film Canigou. At these 2 times of the year, the sun sets directly behind the distant Canigou, creating a mountain silhouette. This event has been observed since at least 1808, and here's a photo taken in 1898. It's a beautiful event, one that I hope to see my...
So you can see that the mountains are there, right? This is bad for a globe Earth believer.
So someday, but it's also a great proof of the flat Earth. Let's look at this long-distance Canigou photo from the Beyond Range website. The distance...
So there it is again. Here's the math. I covered the math, but this is the official Earth curvature calculator. This is not a flat Earth math. This is the official claim. Those mountains should be completely blocked by the curve of the Earth. Okay, so long story short, it's been observed multiple times. I wanted you guys to see the video. It's like the prettiest flat Earth proof. So here, we'll watch this video right here and look at how you don't see the mountains. This answers another question people say. Oh, if the Earth was flat, couldn't I see France from here? No, you can't see forever, and that's because light attenuates, which is a fancy way of saying it gets absorbed into the air. So when light's coming to you, it gets absorbed into the air. Eventually, you can't see things anymore. Proof of that is this right here. You cannot see the mountains until the sun gets behind them, if it'll stop tripping, yeah. So this is, even if you thought the Earth was a globe, you'd have to admit, oh, well, the light gets absorbed into the atmosphere and we can't see it. You see how you don't really see the mountains? And actually, if you go right before this, you don't see the mountains at all. I want everyone to kind of get this. So if you see here, you don't see the mountains, then you start seeing them. It's because the sun's a super bright light, now it's not completely absorbed, and now there they are. Now, can we all just be real with each other? Can we level with each other? Those are just the mountains. We're just seeing the mountains. The alternative claim is that's an illusion. Those aren't there. If you think the Earth's a globe, you have to think that those mountains are not actually there. Well, I can book a flight right now and go see them on a specific day. So that is a direct falsification of the Earth being a globe. Here are some more, and then we'll get into some of the basic questions people typically have. You can do something, everyone in here can do it for like $10. You can take a mirror, go to the beach, and you can reflect light with a mirror. You can stand on the other side based on how far away you are. The earth should curve and block the mirror. You have to have a direct line of sight with that mirror because the light has to reflect at a certain angle to see it. We've done mirror flashes over 20, 25 miles on the beach, directly on the beach. Should be under like a mountain of curvature, yet you can just see it flashing. In fact, the military has used this for years because it's a silent form of communication to people to know target acquirement and know their position. So the people will use little pocket mirror flashes in the military because then they can't hijack the comms and hear where they're at. So the military knows that the earth is flat. Here's something called specular reflections, a proof that everyone can go look at for themselves as well. So I put these in here. You see the mountain is reflected on the water. People have probably seen this before. If the water begins to move just a little bit, you see how the picture gets distorted. Okay, that's called a diffused reflection, meaning if the surface is not flat, the light will not reflect and you will not get one of these. So the fact we're looking over large bodies of water and we're seeing the direct one-to-one reflection means the surface of the water has to be flat. If you've ever seen like a clown house mirror, you look all distorted, it's because the mirror is bending. If the water's bending, you can't get a reflection. It's called a specular reflection. If the earth is curving, you would have a diffused reflection. This would be impossible. They're observed all the time, all over the world. This is a falsification of a globe. Here's another really simple one. If the earth is a ball and I'm standing on top of the ball, the earth is going to curve down and away from my feet in all directions, right? Because it's a ball. So I'm standing on top of the ball, it's curving down and away from my feet. That means as I get higher, the earth's going to be further and further below me because it's curving down and away from my feet, right? It's a ball. Now here is what happens in reality. When you go higher on the earth and you look at the horizon, if this will work, it's frozen. How dare them. All right, doesn't matter. It's not working. Anyway, what happens is the horizon rises with the drone in this footage, meaning that as you go higher, the horizon, which should be the curve of the earth, should be going down and away from you, actually comes up with you. Well, that's what happens on a flat earth. Coincidence 4,000. All right, here's another one. Radio waves can be sent over 10,000 miles with no curvature obstruction. This requires a bit of a history lesson, but there are many people probably know someone with a ham radio license. And they falsify the globe on a daily basis. So this is how radio waves work. They're actually light. They're non-visible spectrum of light. Most people don't know. We only see about 1% of the spectrum of light. So back in the day in 1901, Marconi sent radio waves across the Atlantic Ocean, and he sent them like 2,200 miles, and everyone's like, bro, you're crazy, you're not going to be able to do that. The curvature of the Earth is going to block the radio wave at like 200 miles. You can't do that. He's like, oh, I'm going to try it anyway. First attempt, successfully sent it, line of sight, horizontal, 2,200 miles. Official history, by the way. History.com will actually tell you that exact story. So then what did they do? Did they accept, oh, the Earth is flat? Of course not. They said there must be a layer around the Earth where the Earth or the radio wave reflects back down to the Earth. And so, because of course, if I shoot something out straight and the Earth's curving underneath me, it's going to start going towards space. Oh, well, there's something up there that's going to reflect it back down, and it's pure coincidence it landed right where you had that station that was trying to receive the signal. So that's a cool story, and it's called the ionosphere. And they claim that it goes 30 to 40 megahertz. So to keep it pretty simple, it's just the frequency of the wave. The problem is, if anything is over that frequency, it goes right through it. And this can be tested in a lab, right? Ionized gas is called plasma. So when there's a charged up gas, it's called plasma. It'll reflect radio waves. But if the signal's higher than the frequency of the plasma, it'll go right through it. We have radio waves, here are a few, 106 megahertz, so well over 30, going 2,500 miles. These are the world amateur records. 2,100 miles, 2,500 miles, 2,700 miles. And these are not even the worst ones. We have them going up into the gigahertz, going hundreds or thousands of miles. Direct line of sight, horizontal propagation refutes the globe. So this happens every day. That's a problem. Again, they claim it bounces off the ionosphere. These frequencies are too high to do that. So how are we receiving them thousands of miles away? Here's a military document called Propagation of Electromagnetic Fields over a Flat Earth. In order to create a ground weapon system, they had to assume the Earth was flat, specifically a dielectric plane. Here's another Army military document, computationally efficient algorithms for estimating the angle of arrival of helicopters using acoustic rays. So to interpret their data of sending out sound waves at the ground to land, had to assume the Earth was flat. That's a major problem, because if it's reflecting off a sphere, it's going to be at a different rate or duration. Derivation and definition of a linear aircraft model. In this document, it says you have to assume a flat and stationary, non-rotating surface of Earth. I will tell you there are maybe thousands of these. So it's no secret. The excuse is they do it just because the math is simpler. No, it's because it won't work if you don't treat the Earth like it's flat. And specifically, math or no math, this wouldn't work the same if the Earth was a globe. So the military knows, and side note, I'll plug this real quick, this is anecdotal, but former Air Force pilot got kicked out because he wouldn't let them genetically modify him recently, a veteran for almost 3 decades. He was a WSO, Weapons Specialist Officer, and he told me about how when they were overseas, deployed in Afghanistan, they saw the K2 mountain range, which is 28,000 feet tall, while they were flying at 28,000 feet up, directly level with them from 300 miles away. So according to the globe Earth, those mountains should have been way below them, multiple degrees below them. He used an actual targeting pod in his weapons specialist officer seat in the back of the plane to spot those mountains were directly level with them. That's really impossible. I mean, refraction doesn't help with that. I mean, this guy obviously has to remain anonymous. I actually verified his identity, his name, looked him up and everything, but he's afraid to come out for obvious reasons. He still contracts through them. So that's pretty telling. He's given me like 5 different evidences. He said that all the technology they use in the Air Force the Earth has to be flat. Take it or leave it. Maybe you know someone's in the Air Force. Go ask them some questions. Ask them how the radar works. Do they use linear functions? Okay, claim number 3, and then we'll get into more of like how does this work questions. I don't have a bunch of slides for this one because I knew I was going to be pushing it time-wise, but supposedly the Earth is in a vacuum, and so the simplest way to show that this is impossible, I will tell you, it's called the second law of thermodynamics, blah, blah, blah. Fancy way of saying when you open the soda, it goes psh, because it's equalizing to the lower pressure around the soda. So there's pressure built up in that soda once you remove the sill. It equalizes. That's because high pressure goes to low pressure. That's called the second law of thermodynamics. It isn't really a debate or a theory. It's just a fact of physics in natural world, right? It's called the second law. Heat goes to cold as well. Same thing. Your coffee, if you make coffee, it'll cool off. It's because the heat goes to the cooler region. If you leave your door open, the AC will leave, right? The heat will rush in. So very simple stuff. High pressure goes to low pressure. Heat goes to cold. So they claim we obviously have an atmosphere. If we didn't, you wouldn't be alive. And they claim it's inside of a vacuum. Now, this is a major problem because the air is going to fill the vacuum. And violently. It's not going to take its time. It's going to violently fill the vacuum. So the technical argument is that entropy will increase in all natural and spontaneous systems. The system will spontaneously seek equilibrium, violently filling the available space. You can also look at gas law. But the problem is the globe Earth claims that we're just flying through a vacuum with no container. Conveniently, we know that the Earth is contained, just like the CIA does, which is why they mapped out the firmament in 1957. So that's why you have gas pressure, is because it's contained. It's not around a vacuum with no container. You're not flying through, whizzing through bottomless pit in all directions with nothing protecting you. You may die from asteroids. That's all fake pseudoscience. So long story short, this isn't real. This is scientifically and physically impossible. I've asked every PhD under the sun that will talk to me. They have no actual answer. They'll say gravity. Then when you ask them, wait, gravity's strongest at the surface. It doesn't stop gas from filling available space here. How would it do it where it's weaker, closer to the vacuum of space? And they just give you, I don't know. So we're talking PhDs. So here are for some of the questions. So people will say, well, how does the sun set if the Earth is flat? So conveniently, I put this picture here. I'll show you a video right here, I believe. So check this out. Obviously on the globe Earth, we're spinning. So when we go look at the sun and it sets, we're actually falling backwards. We just can't tell. And the sun looks like it's moving, but it's not moving. That's an illusion. And so when the sun starts setting, it's because we're falling backwards, and then the Earth's curvature blocks the sun. Okay? Other option is we don't feel like we're moving because we're not. The sun looks like it's moving because it's moving. I know, I'm crazy. So now here's a problem. They claim that the sunset happens because the Earth's curvature blocks it. The sun's going below the Earth, right? Well, here's a video of the sun, and people will say, oh, because it disappears bottom up, it can only be the curve of the Earth, blah, blah, blah. Here's an actual video of a real sunset. Wait a minute. What's happening here? The sun is setting way above the horizon. So the curvature of the Earth isn't blocking the sun right here, is it? So this proves that, no, the sunset happens because it moves away in the distance, and based on the horizontal layers of the atmos, it gets too far to see it. And the bottom of the sun gets to the thicker part of the atmosphere first, it just starts to disappear. It's like if I take a flashlight away from you in the fog, you can't see it. See, flat Earth isn't super complicated, and anyone that tells you sunsets don't work on a flat Earth are sadly mistaken. In fact, they only work on a flat Earth because here we are watching them disappear above the horizon. So that's how the sunset works. I got another visualization for you. Here's a time lapse of the sun. As you can see, does it look like the sun's moving away from us? Well, the globe says the sun's the same distance the whole time, and we're just spinning, falling away from it. We can clearly see that the sun's just moving away from us. That's why it's hotter at noon, because it's right above you, not 93 million miles away. Here's the depiction. We have a hallway. You see the streetlights. Let's look at the streetlights. All those streetlights are the same height, right? But they look like they're going down. They're all the same height. It's because of perspective. Perspective makes the streetlights look like they're going down. Here's a time lapse of the sun in the bottom right here. Looks exactly the same, huh? And so a good analogy is, it looks like railroad tracks are converging. If you flipped the railroad tracks on their side, that would be the sky and the ground. Just looks like it's converging, just like railroad tracks do. And the sun is moving away, looks like it's going down like the streetlights do. Eventually you can't see it because it gets too far away. So that's how the sunset works. Here's one of my favorite videos ever. This is my friend Rakia Life. He's in Louisiana. But watch the sun here. This is pretty fascinating. What you will find if you look this up is sunsets debunk flat Earth, and they can only exist if the Earth's a globe, and they disappear bottom up because they go behind the curve of the Earth and all this stuff. No, we've seen the sun disappear above the Earth multiple times. The sun is not going beneath the curve of the Earth. And what's so funny is, even on its face, we're supposed to believe this straight horizontal line right here is a curve. No, it's not. It's called a horizontal horizon. But if you look here, this is super cool to me. You're going to see the sun start to disappear. I'll just move it forward. Yeah, look at that. The sun's disappearing all of a sudden above the water. Look, it's just disappearing into the air. This is, of course, proof that the sun disappears because of the atmosphere. There is no sphere, of course, because air doesn't have a shape, and nor is the Earth a sphere, but you get it. The atmos. So, there's proof of that. To cover that, here's a few more things to wrap this up. So, day and night cycle, people say, why isn't the whole Earth lit up, right? Like, why isn't it daytime all around the Earth if the Earth is flat and the sun's here locally? Well, we just covered why, right? The sun disappears into the air. It can't travel forever, the light. I won't go into the fact that light can't actually travel in the first place. It's a whole thing. But anyway, here is a depiction of how day and night works on a flat Earth. So here's a dome. We're going to take a light source, and you're going to see how it works. This bottom animation here is the actual day and night data throughout the year, so June, March, December. What a coincidence, if you put a light source near a dome over a flat Earth, it perfectly matches day and night on the Earth. That's coincidence 4005. So as to whether or not day and night works, of course it does. No, it wouldn't be daytime all the time. No, you wouldn't see the sun from across the whole Earth. Unless you deny basic physics, I guess. But just so you guys know, that is how it works. Hopefully I feel like visualizations are normally better for people. So that's how it works. You see how obviously part of the earth is dark there, right? And then as the sun moves around it, it's going to give you day and night. So just like we see, the sun rises, it goes over our head, and then it goes away. There's another claim that says the sun's not actually moving. So you decide. All right, another question we get, because there's only a few I have on here, seasons. I figured a lot of people may ask questions, but here's how the seasons work. The sun moves in and out from the center throughout the year. So over a flat earth, it just moves over top of the earth. So obviously right now, it's summer for us, so the sun is closer to us like right here. You can also take a time lapse of the sun and it does a 360 around you in the north. So like in Alaska, you can see 24-hour sun. The sun goes in a perfect circle around you. Well, yeah, that's how it works on a flat earth. And then it moves back out throughout the year, and that gives you winter because the sun's further away from you. So you have shorter days. It gets darker quicker, and then you have the winter because the sun's further away. Now it's their summer. So that's how it actually works. I bet most people in this room wouldn't even know how the globe model claims it works. I'll tell you. They claim that the earth is tilted. So if you look right here, they claim that the earth's a ball that's tilted, the sun's coming from 93 million miles away, and it's heating up the earth. There's a problem, though. So we see that if we look at the temperature signature data, right, so the actual heat temperature of the heat signature of the earth, the hottest part is the equator. Most people probably know that. Well, if the earth is a tilted ball, if you look up here in the top left, the sun rays are actually going to hit the earth slightly above the equator first. That means if the earth is a ball, the hottest part of the earth should be above the equator, because the sun rays will hit the earth first because it's tilted towards the sun. I have never heard a rebuttal. I've been in this for 8 years. I've talked to all of them. There is no rebuttal to this. This is a major problem. Now, look at the bottom left. Oh, remember we saw the sun just moves in circles over the earth. Of course the equator is the hottest. The sun is over that area the longest. So it makes perfect sense on a flat earth. And this is why you get the analemma, because the sun moves out away from you, and then it comes back and gives you your seasons. It changes its path throughout the year. That sun actually gets smaller in the winter because it's further away from you. It literally is smaller in our sky, even with solar filters. So that's a major problem for the globe. It's also an explanation so everyone knows how it works. A few more things and we're almost done. So people will say, well, how do all the planets move? How do the orbits work? Stuff like that. If you see here in the center, this is the Earth in the center. So this is a geocentric model, which means Earth-centered, right? So if you have the Earth stationary, it's in the center of the universe. It's just all the planets mapped out on a stationary Earth. And it makes a flower of life. So this is sacred geometry. It's called a flower of life. Now, what's interesting is this right here on the left is a Ferrel cell image of a magnetic field. So magnetic fields give you that exact same pattern. So when people say you have no flat Earth model, no, actually we have a far superior model. It's seen at all scales of physics, from quantum all the way to the cosmological scale. And it perfectly matches the sacred ratio, the golden ratio, the flower of life. Now, the heliocentric model is just like chaotic. It doesn't make any sense, but the stars keep resetting. So here's a few more depictions for you. So you remember I showed you guys the fake model. This is the real model. And someone asked about the ISS earlier. If you look here, this is the ISS trajectory on a flat Earth. Interesting. It's the same exact pattern as the magnetic field. It's almost as if there's a magnetic field and they can catch the field lines and move around. What's even funnier is they said we can't go to space because of the Van Allen radiation, right? Well, yeah, they can't go to space. They're in a torus field. It's a magnetic field. There's a firmament. So now what's interesting is, why does the ISS not go over the North Pole or the South Pole? So this is very quickly flipped around, and now the ISS is a major problem for everyone but flat earthers. This avoids the North Pole and the South Pole. All satellites do. These are all the paths of the planets. This is the magnetic flux data mapped on a flat Earth. It does a vortex. I encourage people to look more into a lot of the specifics of this. I don't have time to go into the technicalities, but just so you know, these are Ferrel cell images of a magnetic field. That's how they look. The planets perfectly match it. The paths of quote-unquote satellites perfectly match it. So when they show you this is fake. This is not what anyone thinks. And if Flat Earth is so stupid, you wouldn't show people that. You would show them this and tell them why it's stupid. They'll never do that because this is the unified theory of everything. It's hands down far superior to anything that modern physics has to offer. So in conclusion, that is our actual model. That's my model. Look, I don't speak for everyone else. The thing about flat earthers are they're all very open-minded. They think for themselves. We're not a cult of thought. But simply, the Earth is stationary. The sky spins around it. We're inside of this giant torus field. Like I said, this may be a foreign concept to you. You should look into it. But in summary, what we know it's not is this. This is not real. And it's okay. It's okay. So, there you go, Flat Earth 101.
Thank you, Austin. He's all the way out here from Tampa, Florida, by the way. Isn't that awesome? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a 5-minute break, potty break, get a drink break, and then think of the whatever. Feel free to think of a question that just annihilates everything he just said. Think of the hardest question that you can come up with that just blows this away, and he has no answer for it. Bring it. Let's bring it. We'll ask it to him after that break. Now, I want to say something. This number over here, text your questions to it. That's the number that is that has been on all of our public websites, and there are thousands of texts coming in because of Heterosexual Awesomeness Month. So, as my phone is like zzz, 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 zzz in my pocket, I don't think this is gonna work. So if you sent a message in already, I'll try to dig it up. But you don't need to be embarrassed. Just stand up, ask your flat Earth question. It's okay. And we'll go around. I'm gonna walk around to you and you ask the question instead of doing it this way. Let's just go around. I'll hand the mic to you, ask the question, he's gonna answer it. 5 minutes, take a break. Talk to you soon. All right. So you guys are gonna unleash questions on him. They're gonna challenge everything about flat Earth and prove that we are on a ball rotating at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, spinning at 66.6 thousand miles an hour, go around the sun at 250,000 miles an hour while we're all flying through space at those speeds. And we can't feel all those things. And so ask the questions, and through your questions, we can hopefully prove it. Oh, sir, over here.
In relation to that movement that Mr. Fitzpatrick was just referring to, we can't feel it on the Earth. How do you explain airline travel? Because you're sitting there at 500-ish miles per hour and not feeling anything.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, people often say, well, you don't feel a plane moving, basically what you're saying. That's why you don't feel the Earth. Well, you're in a contained system, so take the top off the plane, what happens? You're gonna feel it. And the other problem with that is that we have interferometry. So that's highly precise measurement. It uses light. It can detect motion even if you can't feel it. So yes, the globe model says that specifically the Earth is so big that you can't feel it because it's rotating so slow in relation to its size. But you could measure it with interferometry. The interferometry proved the Earth is not moving. That's why the current model says, oh, you could never prove the Earth is moving because time slows down. Everything gets smaller, but you can't tell, and it creates the illusion the Earth's not moving. So, I would say, well, yeah, that's a closed system. It's not the same. Secondly, what happens when you run into turbulence? You feel it. What happens when the plane turns? You feel it. Well, we're supposedly spinning. That's turning. We're supposedly turning around the sun. So that's a change. We're also like wobbling 3 different ways. No one's even told me how that's possible. I don't know what that means. Wobbling 3 different ways at the same time is physically impossible. But anyway, long story short, the change in direction would be acceleration, which means you would feel it. That's why when I press the gas in a car, I fill it. Now, the idea is if you go to a constant velocity, you won't fill it. So in a plane, they get to 500 and they maintain it. So that's that's the problem, is that we're moving in curved paths. According to the heliocentric model, we would fill it moving. It's not a closed system. And even if you want to believe you couldn't fill it, the interferometry would measure and it did not.
Where is the Earth accelerating or decelerating?
So anything that's moving in a curved path has to be accelerating because it's changing speed. So because to continue to curve back around, it has to slow down and speed back up. Same thing with when it's supposedly orbiting, it banks and curves back around the sun. So it has to slow down and curve and then bank and then come back and speed up. So the technical answer is anything that is rotating is technically accelerating because of a change of direction.
So a left-hand turn, you'd have to slow down and accelerate.
Yeah,
speed up.
yes. Anytime you turn a vehicle, you're changing speed.
How does a lunar eclipse work for flat Earth?
Great question. So I don't know how the lunar eclipse works. I just know how it doesn't work. So they claim, for those who don't know, that the Earth is blocking the sun, casting a shadow onto the moon. That's called a lunar eclipse. There's something called a selenian eclipse, which is a type of lunar eclipse where the sun and moon are both above the Earth during the eclipse. So that's a geometric impossibility. If the Earth is a sphere blocking the sun, casting a shadow, that's called syzygy. When they're in a line, it would cast a shadow onto the Earth. The sun and moon have been observed above the Earth during the eclipse. It's called the selenian eclipse, also known as the impossible eclipse. So what I do know is what they said is not happening. Ancient depictions, even the Royal Astronomical Society with astronomers in the 1800s said that there's basically another body in the sky that does it. There's another thing called the quantum Venn diagram paradox. So basically, if you have the polarized lens, as you turn one of the lenses, it'll create exactly what we see with the eclipse. It'll start to change it. There's another thing, to not try to overwhelm everyone, but another thing is if you have three spheres lined up and one sphere moves in front of the other to make a shadow, it does not remain a circle. It actually becomes an oval and then goes back to a circle. But we see that the eclipse has a perfect circle the whole time. So it can't be the Earth being a sphere casting a shadow. That's what I do know. And what I think it's probably electromagnetic polarization. There could be something else in the sky. It's a great question. I think we don't know.
Yes, sir. Your name?
My name is Tim Taylor, and there is a gentleman who is a fervent advocate of flat Earth over in, I believe, Seattle, and he, on one of his videos, showed a person with a device that measured the temperature of the shadow of the moon. And we all know that in sunlight, in the shade, it's cooler. But in the moonlight, the shade was colder. Could you speak of that? And then also, once again, mention some of the names behind the Flat Earth movement.
Yeah. Okay, I'll start there. So I'm going to shout out my boy again if you weren't here earlier, Dave Weiss, Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. So that's DIRTH. But you can go to the App Store and type in Flat Earth. There's an app. It's called the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. Just type in Flat Earth. I told him it's way too long. What can you do? People don't listen. So you go to the question mark there, and all the questions that you're going to come up with, and some have already been answered. And if they couldn't have been answered, we wouldn't exist. Right, we thought of those questions too, trust me. So Flat Earth app, that's Dave Weiss. You have Eric Dubé, who is one of the first people I heard of. Disclaimer again, I don't agree with everything that all these people do, but that's what being open-minded means. You're not going to agree with everyone and everything. Jaron from Jaronism, Alan from Space Audit, Shane, Toby from Ether Cosmology. So those are some things to look up. Yes, so basically what he's saying is that the current model says that the moonlight is the sunlight reflecting off the moon. And so what that would mean is that the light is hot, and so when you get in the shade of the moonlight, it would get colder. But people have used many different methods to measure the temperature, and it's actually warmer in the shade than it is in moonlight. So it's very interesting. It's as if the moonlight is cold. That would kind of refute the idea that it's reflecting sunlight. So yeah, it's very interesting. I'm unsettled on that. I like to be really specific about what I claim to be true, but it is interesting. The evidence is overwhelming that the moonlight is colder than the shade that it creates, which doesn't work in their model. Basically, the reoccurring theme is, let's try to figure it out. We just know what they said is not true. You know, and that's why I said it like 4 times in the presentation, because most people are like, well, I want to hold on to the globe so much, so if I can find an answer a flat earther doesn't know, or a question the flat earther doesn't know the answer to, the earth's a globe again. It's not. You know, I don't have to replace Santa Claus or Santa remains true. So that's basically the analogy. But yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon. And yeah, check out the other flat earthers. Go to the Flat Earth app, man. Just do it. It's where everything is. All the content creators are there. All the questions are answered there. All the visualizations are there. Observations, evidence, etc. Cool.
I'm Kelly, and I'm curious, did anyone see the moon approach the sun to give us the eclipse that we just had not long ago?
No, of course. No one's ever seen that. No. It's never been observed. Yeah. Never been observed. They claim that it happens. I will say on a flat earth, if the solar eclipse is the moon going in front of the sun, that works anyway. That's not a problem for flat earth, but like you said, it's never actually been observed, the moon approaching the sun. I will say this, in case you don't know. We see the sun and the moon are the same size, and you may not believe in the Bible, but it says that it made a light for the nighttime and a light for the daytime. Even if you take the Bible out of it, there's a light for the nighttime and a light for the daytime. One's the sun, one's the moon. They're the same size. The yin and yang symbol literally represents that. It's ancient. But what's funny is the globe model claims that the sun is 400 times bigger than the moon. It's just coincidentally, by random cosmic chance, exactly 400 times further away as well, so they look like they're the same size, so that we can have perfect total eclipses. Or they're the same size. One's for the day, one's for the night. All right, what else we got?
Hi, I'm Jennifer.
Hey.
I have a 2-part question. My first question is, in my lifetime, I've heard the narrative about an ozone layer. Do you think that that is an acknowledgement of the firmament without acknowledging the firmament? My second question is, I know what I believe. This is a multi-decade, multi-generational, multi-billion-dollar hoax. Not even talking about the elaborateness of this. What do you think the purpose of that is?
Oh, the $1 million question. He said he's going to cover it. No, I'm not. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah. See, I was saving it for him, man. Okay, so as for the ozone layer, there are layers to the atmos. We call one of them the ozone. I don't have a problem. It could just be the ozone layer. The acknowledgement of the firmament is more so probably the Van Allen radiation belts, and they said he can't go through them. There are layers to the atmos, and if there's a firmament, technically it may actually conform to the shape of a dome. So yeah, I mean, as to is global warming real, and is there a hole in it because we use hairspray? Probably not. And if that was true, then NASA stopped using so much of it. As to what's the purpose of it, that's the $1 million question. The reason I avoid the question is not actually because I don't think I have a good answer. I think I have quite a few really good answers. I typically don't because I think it's cope. Now, I can tell you're not coping, but most people were like, what's it even matter? And that's one of those, I got uncomfortable, let's dismiss it type of questions. And so normally I'm like, no. We're going to go back to the evidence. Like if I show you a video of your girlfriend cheating and you say, but she loves me, bro, why would she lie? I'm like, I don't know. I just caught her lying, bro. But here are my answers. So one is the most valuable resource in all of mankind is land. And as many wealthy people will tell you, one thing they don't make more of is land. That's what all wars were fought over, land and resources. So if there's more land and resources than we know about, then obviously the globe deception would hide it. And that's that's what the 60th south latitude is. It's basically a circle drawn around you. You live in like a real life Hunger Games. I don't know if you've ever watched that, but that's real. If you've ever seen the Truman Show, that's also real. They put lies in news, truth in movies. So hiding land, I think, is a big one. And you don't even have to get out past Antarctica. Just the Southern Ocean is not well charted or mapped. There could be many big pieces of land that wealthy people inhabit, know about, use the resources. They don't let you know. They said, oh, the Earth is this big. We've traveled everywhere. We've explored everything. Don't worry about it. Another one is people probably learned during the pandemic. This is a super powerful way to brainwash people when you convince them to not believe what's right in front of their eyes. So they told people, hey man, the air is going to kill you. Now everyone knows the air keeps you alive, but everyone thought, oh man, the air is going to kill me. And then they're like, people are dying everywhere. And then you didn't actually see people dying everywhere until they went and got on ventilators. So I think if you can trick someone into not believing their own senses and their own experience or being confident to figure out the truth themselves, then they default to turning to authority for answers. And that is perfect for a state of enslavement. It's been written about in black magic for many, many decades. Another one I will say is to hide God. And people always jump on that. I knew that's why you're. No, that's not what it just does that. If the Earth's a tiny speck of dust in an ever-expanding universe of nothingness, and we're insignificant, tucked away in an insignificant corner, we don't have a special place. It's not unique. It's random. Just the odds are eventually an Earth would exist. Maybe there's life on other planets, and there's a Big Bang, and all this Jesuit nonsense. The Earth is insignificant, and you could think, oh, well, maybe there's no creator. The alternative is that the Earth is not moving and it's in the center of everything. And if the Earth is in the center of everything, someone had to put it there. And so if the Earth is the center, if the universe is geocentric, immediately you have to acknowledge a creator. You have to. Now, I'll say, I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about how there's a creator. If there is a creator, you're very hard to control. And actually, the CIA, being our best friends, have run studies on this. And they've shown that believers, or what they would call religious people, are much harder to control. Because you answer to God, you don't answer to government. And so that's another reason they hid God. Last answer, because I got 15 more. But the Freemasonic symbol is a compass in a square. It's about measuring the Earth being flat. Albert Pike will tell you in Morals and Dogma they use plane geometry for the Earth, spherical geometry for the sky, keep it away from the average normal person, and then you have power, because if they don't even know where they live and you do, you have the secret knowledge that makes you more powerful than they are. So occultic groups always lie to the masses.
My name's Ian, asking this question on behalf of my dad, John. So, according to Hugh Ross, who's a Christian astrophysicist, if you take a flight from Athens to Johannesburg, which is over the equator, north to south flight, and you look out your window, you'll slowly see the stellar constellations turn upside down. And he claims that does not work on a flat Earth. How do you refute that?
I would have to see a video of that, seeing them turn upside down. I've never seen that. What I will say is when you look a different direction, then the stars will look like they're moving in a different direction. So it's similar to if I walk across the street and turn around, the same car will look like it's going the opposite way. So perspective alone will explain why the stars look like they go in opposite ways. I will tell you, though, if what you just said is true and we're on a globe and it's flipping us upside down, then when I take a gyroscope, the gyroscope, which remains level and maintains what's called rigidity in space, it would slowly tilt as we fly and then flip over. And newsflash, it doesn't do that. So the Earth is not a sphere. We're not flying over a sphere. That would be my answer. I would be interested to see time lapse. I've seen time lapse of northeast, southwest flights, and I never saw the stars do anything like that. So I'm not sure where you got that, to be honest, brother.
Shooting stars coming up from the horizon. People mention that. Is that legit argument or not?
That's one of my arguments, actually. So no one's ever been able to show me stars coming directly up from the horizon. If you're on a globe, think about it. Because trust me, you have to think about it really hard because it's all just so insane. Stars are beneath your feet right now because you're on a globe. There's no up or down. So stars, you're swimming in stars, they're beneath your feet. So that means that shooting stars should come up directly from the horizon. They should be coming up from underneath you. That doesn't actually happen. It's interesting that someone else asks that, but they'll come from angles or come from above you or come from the side, or if they ever look like they're coming up from the horizon, they'll be coming behind mountains or at an angle. They should be able to come straight up from the horizon if the Earth's a ball, specifically over the marine horizon, over ocean. And that's never been observed. Trust me, I have the people that if it existed, they would have found it. They couldn't. And I'll also say I did time lapse over the ocean all throughout my tour when I toured the US. And the star trails actually don't even intersect with the ocean. They stop above them, which goes to how the stars don't come up from the horizon. So that sounds good. If someone can show me a video of stars coming directly up from the horizon, I'll check it out. Wouldn't necessarily disprove flat Earth because perspective makes things look like they go down, but I've never seen, don't think it exists. I think that actually falsifies the globe.
Hello, my name's Heather. I have a question about homeschooling. So other than Dave's app answering questions on that, is there anyone you know of that helps people explain this to little kids?
Great question. So I think the Founded Earth Brothers have homeschool curriculum. That is something I want to do, actually. It's easier said than done, but I would check out the Founded Earth Brothers, and I think they also have a biblical approach to it. I don't know where you stand on that, but yeah, that's the one that pops off the top of my head. I know there's a few. Earthen Vessels. Oh yeah, that's my homie. He made heliosorcery. Yes, he made heliosorcery. Check that out as well. That you should actually show them that movie. He's cool. That's my homie. So yeah, heliosorcery. So Earthen Vessels, and we got Founded Earth Brothers. And I will say I want to work on one as well, because that's the most important thing. We teach children what to think, not how to think. No one understands logic, and then they're just told fairy tales about dinosaurs and space dust. So.
Going off my just real elementary remembrance of science and everything, craters that are on the Earth and the Moon, what's the problem with those as far as like what they say and claim, asteroids and things? What would it really look like? Do those actually indicate that an asteroid or something hit the Earth? Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, so like I kind of alluded to, the idea of asteroids hitting the Earth and making craters or meteorites was written about in a Freemasonic science fiction novel before they were ever alleged discovered. Just food for thought. It doesn't mean it's not real, but it's a reoccurring theme. They write about it in a science fiction book written by a Mason, and then they tell everyone it happened. So I guess they're savants and prophets or something, or they're liars. I don't know. So anyway, I will say they claim that they're all making perfect circles because a lot of people will say, why do the asteroids, if they come in at an angle, wouldn't they skid on the ground? Wouldn't they create like different, disproportionate impacts? Because if you think about it, to get a perfect circle, you would think that it needs to come in and hit at 90 degrees. But the odds are that they'd be coming in from like every other angle, including with the moon, and so you'd have skid marks, right? And you'll never see a skid mark. They just kind of hand-wave dismiss that, they being the official answer. They say the reason that they look like they're from 90 degrees is because the impact is so intense. It's an explosion, and the explosion overcomes the angle that it hit at or whatever. And then I'll even tell you what it looks like the actual truth is that water will come from underneath the Earth, and then the ground implodes where the water came from, and it makes that exact same thing that people call meteorites. It's been observed, even documented and videoed. Also, plasma does it. As for the moon, bubbles and plasma implode and make exactly what we see in the moon. It's been replicated in the lab. No evidence that rocks fall from the sky and make craters.
What's up?
What's up?
Hey, I'm Josh. I just want to thank Old State Saloon for this opportunity, and thank you for coming and sharing your stuff with us. This is new to me. I love Jesus, and so I would like to know how this is like shown in a biblical Jesus, God created the universe, all that stuff, like way. That. Oh, I'm too early. I'm sorry.
He said tomorrow night. I can hear. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, sir. I'd love to hear your response.
Yeah, of course. Like you said, that is tomorrow night's topic, biblical cosmology, also referred to as Hebrew cosmology. So all academia will tell you that the Bible describes the earth as a plane with a firmament that's not moving, and there's water above us being held back by the firmament. There's actually water below us and water all around us. What they'll say, what modern Christianity will say is, well, they just wrote through the lens of what they knew at the time. And so I guess you could say that about everything. Maybe you believe in evolution and the Big Bang. Maybe there are 47 genders, and they just didn't know. And then obviously the Messiah, came to earth and then forgot to tell all the Hebrew authors and prophets and people that they were completely wrong about the first book. So I find that hard to believe, but simply put, it says the earth is immovable and fixed. It's on pillars, it has corners, it has a firmament that's beaten out strong as bronze. It's like a tent stretched out over us to protect us, holds back the waters. The flood came because it was opened up and water came in. First time it ever rained was because the firmament was opened up. There's water below us. It also says that the strongest winds on earth are out in the south, and Antarctica is known to be the strongest, and the Hebrew authors obviously knew that somehow. It also says that man will never know the dimensions of the earth, and the day that they're able to actually measure the dimensions of earth, he'll stop loving his people. And so, that doesn't add up to knowing it's 24,901 mile circumference. So that's a brief intro to it. I'll cover it tomorrow in depth, but yeah, now I will say this again. If the earth is in the center of the universe, it had to be a creator. Most people will say, but I already believe in God, what's it matter? Well, what about the millions of children that are being told that they're a tiny, insignificant speck of dust, and that rocks turned into fish, and then fish jumped out the water, and we're like, oh, this water's whack, let's turn into something else, and their ancestors are strawberry. This is important because other people are being misled as to insignificance, and whatever the scriptures say is important, period. We don't get to make up arbitrary determinations of that and bend the will of the scriptures to the will of man. So that would be my answer. It's very important. It proves the scriptures are literally true, describing creation, and it's being undermined. I think that's actually the main reason for the lie. So. Why would they lie, bro?
Sorry. Okay, so my name's Jacqueline, and I'm asking this from the internet because I don't need to be proven that what you're saying is right, because I already know what you're saying is right. But whenever I've brought this up to other people, they will always cite the Coriolis effect and how everything rotates different.
How dare you? That's actually the death shot. I was hoping no one would bring it up. No. Yeah, so who don't know, Coriolis, they claim, is because the earth is spinning, and they normally say when you shoot a bullet that the earth will spin underneath it, and it'll be an apparent deflection that'll deviate the bullet. You got to account for it. Of course, unfortunately, the world's record holder for a long-distance rifle, actually 4 miles at this point, it's insane. The bullet's just in the air forever. It's crazy. Said, no, of course you don't account for Coriolis. You account for wind. That's all fake. You have spin barrel, like barrel spin. You don't have anything to do with the earth spinning. That's insane if you had to account for earth spin. But I have a very simple question most flat earthers know. If that's true and the earth is spinning underneath the bullet, then how come I can take my drone and fly it up and it stays right in the same place? How come when I take a hot air balloon, it stays right in the same place? How come when Felix Baumgartner went up 180,000 feet and jumped and free fall, that he didn't fall in relation to the earth spinning east? He actually fell the opposite direction, almost 40 miles. So long story short, that's just a made-up story that would have to exist if the earth were in fact a spinning sphere. And that doesn't exist, and like I said, interferometry proves that as well. But yeah, ask them how. Why does the Earth get to pick and choose when Coriolis is real? That's what I would say.
Dude, this is so awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Austin.
Yeah.
I wanted to throw a couple of things in really quick, just because I don't know, I have a burning passion for this too.
Do it, brother.
So I'll say when I first started, first people had asked me, dude, you need to look this up. And I said the same thing. I was like, if you can explain to me why it matters, then I'll take the time to research it. And then layers, you know, my wife telling me, look into this, look into that, as far as like the health sector. And then it's like, look into the COVID scam or the vaccine. And there's just more and more layers start to unravel. And so at some point it led me to this conversation. I want to mention this. Some of you all have not looked into this yet. And I just think it's awesome that we're having this conversation in public space. You're not expected to go home tonight and be like, oh, I believe that the earth is flat, because it's a process. It is going to be crazy. You may do some research, and then all of a sudden you're going to start second guessing yourself because you see Paramount Pictures or some whatever movie comes on, or the screensaver on your TV is a globe, and you're like, see, it is a globe. You know, it's the craziest stuff that'll make you question, even though it makes absolutely no sense. And it just shows the power of programming. So what I want to actually encourage you all to do is take this information and use it as a launching point to go do your own research. And I'm sorry if I'm stealing something you were going to say. But because it's not, we're not, as humans, there's a cognitive dissonance that we have to reconcile. So you're not expected, so don't go home and be like, just doesn't make sense to me and throw it away. Or say like, I wasn't convinced. You're not expected to be convinced, right? You're expected to ask more questions and do more research. So I feel that, again, as I said earlier, that kids is a big piece of this, because that's where they pull off the largest heists. Since I'm on a roll right now, I'm going to mention I get passionate about vaccines because I work with as a doctor, I work with so many kids who are vaccine injured, and I can't tell you how sad that makes me. And they're preying upon the instincts of the parent to protect their child, right? So the biggest target of the enemy is our children. So we have to, and as to the question about why, we may not have the answer as to why. I do believe that the biggest thing is that it detracts from the glory of God. But that being said, just as a logical argument, if it's big enough that every country on this planet, it's in the word, is in on it, then clearly it's important enough that they don't want you to know about it, right? And we may not know why, but clearly it's that important for them, for you not to know about this, right? So start researching. Ask the critical thinking questions. How come we can see Polaris? Why is it the North Star? Because if we were spinning all these directions, you wouldn't see it in one fixed place, right? How about what's the curvature of the Earth? No one knows, right? Because we weren't taught that. But if you were, you would start asking questions. It's 8 inches per square mile. So what does that mean? Every two miles, it's going to drop, 16 inches, and that's where we get all the things that he was showing us. So have your kid go take a laser and shine it across, a body of water. That's a couple of miles. Have someone stand and measure on the other side. Oh, I guess it didn't drop 16 inches. It's that simple, but we don't ask questions, right? So start challenging your kids to learn this. My wife at first thought I was a little crazy, and the next thing I knew, she ordered a book about biblical cosmology, and it goes through all the Bible verses, and that just talk, and you read the Bible from that angle, and you're like, wow, like all the things my dad told me. Oh, well, they just didn't know it back then, even though it was handed to them directly from the Creator, cosmology. So I'm so excited about tomorrow. But I just want to encourage you, start empowering yourself and your children to become free thinkers, because they're trying to keep us captive. Let's not take that. So. Amen.
We have a few more questions for sure, but I just wanted to point out that for me, all I want is the truth. Jesus is the truth, right? So if somebody can come and refute all of this as being total nonsense, I want to hear it. And so we put out opportunity to debate Austin. Nobody took it nationwide. We offered a $2,000 reward locally for any pastor to come debate him, and nobody took it. There are pastors locally who have put out written statements that they have determined, based off their research, that there's no merit to this, biblically, historically, or scientifically. They have put it in writing, and they've given it to me personally. And they refuse to show up to debate and tell us the reason why. I want to know the truth. If it's the truth that, we're on a ball spinning 66, all the 666s and everything, bring it. Bring the truth. That's what I want. But nobody would do it. So I'm saying what we're going to do is we're going to crowdfund as much money as we need to get whoever How about Danny Faulkner? We're gonna crowdfund 10 grand, 10 grand, 20 grand. Don't worry, I'm not asking you guys to do it. We're gonna do this nationwide. We're gonna crowdfund 10 grand, 20 grand, whatever we need to get, let's just say, Danny Faulkner out here. He works at the Ark Encounter and answers in Genesis and all that stuff. And he can come here and he can debate Austin. And we can witness it, and then we can it'll help us to determine truth. All I want is the truth. And I think if we all get together and the nation gets together and we put money towards it, we can crowdfund where he would be so pressured to come here because it'd be like 25 grand to the charity of his choice. And all his followers would say, you better show up to this debate because you say the earth is a ball, so do it. Hey, and if he can come and he can prove it and he can show it, great. That's what I want. I want the truth. Are you good with that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
You're good with debating Danny Faulkner?
Good luck.
Is there anybody else that you don't want to debate? You'll debate any astrophysicist in the world?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Next question.
Hi, my name is Cindy Lance. I've been down the rabbit hole with flat Earth for just only a year, but I find it very interesting. And a question I had is, with commercial airline pilots, are they in on this whole scam? Like, if they circumvent the Earth, supposedly, then they have to know that the Earth is flat.
Yes. So that's a good question. So every pilot flies the plane like the Earth is flat. Circumnavigation, obviously say east to west because you can't do north to south, and it's never been done in the history of man, and that's totally not sketchy, but it's just a circle on a flat Earth, right? I've talked to dozens of pilots, commercial, Air Force, you name it, some Globers, quote-unquote Globe Earth proponents, some flat earthers. They all say, of course, you fly the plane like the Earth is flat and stationary. So I will say, no, they're not in on it. From their perspective, they have to fly the Earth like it's flat and stationary. That part's never even thought about. It's not even questioned. It's just a fact. If you didn't, you would die. So that's how you fly the plane. You have to fly like it's flat. When it comes to circumnavigation, planes don't really do that very often. I mean, they'll have layovers and stuff, but even if you did, it would just be going east to west, which is a circle. It would be the same on a globe or flat Earth. What I found is every pilot that finds out about it and genuinely thinks about it all of a sudden has the epiphany that they've proven it to themselves 1,000 times and never thought about it. And so I would say that's my answer. No, they're not in on it. Most of them haven't consciously thought about it. And it's the number one profession with flat earthers from my experience.
And then I would add, during COVID, were the nurses in on it when they were directed to take people in, put them on a ventilator, and give them remdesivir, and knowing they didn't know it was going to kill them, but they did it anyways because they were told to.
My name is Tim Taylor, and one of the things that I've learned from investigating this subject of flat Earth is that mariners in the southern latitudes have experienced problems when they go with the longitudinal spectrum in terms of navigating where they're at. Mm-hmm. And when they do that on a global perspective, they end up being off course. So can you address that?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting, so some people may not know, 90% of the world's population lives in the quote-unquote northern hemisphere. The south is largely unexplored and uninhabited. What happened, what he's referring to, is sailors, of course, they sailed in the north majority of the time. They began to venture out south, and they were like, oh, the Earth's a sphere, so it should be symmetrical. It should be north and south are symmetrical on a sphere. So they began to navigate assuming that, and they started getting lost. They started wrecking. People started dying. They started losing today's equivalent of hundreds of millions of dollars in precious metals from the royal family's voyages, etc. So they had to fix the problem. That, I always say, if it comes down to money or like people being alive, the Earth is flat overnight. You know, every time that someone's lives at stake or it's money at stake, the Earth is flat. So the money forced the fix. They were off by 200-300 miles in just a matter of an hour or two, or per day, maybe 200 miles per day. The world's most revered and respected sailors were all getting lost in the South. So what they did was they had to go out there and map out the corrections. And they were like, okay, well, if you follow this new map and not your compass, then you'll have to make all these corrections and you'll be able to get to where you're going. So long story short, people now follow corrections in the South. So that actually proved it. I mean, people died. People died assuming the Earth's a globe. By the way, Amelia Earhart died assuming the Earth's a globe, as far as I can tell. But one more thing I will say is that's a huge tell, is how on a globe, the north and south should be the same. On a flat Earth, they're different. The Earth keeps getting wider. If it's coming out from the center, it keeps getting bigger out south. But on a globe, it starts getting smaller again under the equator. Well, we should have the same climates north and south. We do not. The plant animal life is way different. There's no undersea cables from southern continent to southern continent. When boats sail in the south, it takes them significantly longer than when they go in the north. Flat Earth would predict that. It's a greater distance. Again, when they traveled in the south, assuming symmetry, it didn't work. The magnetic field doesn't show symmetry, and the list goes on and on. The south is different than the north. They've gotten away with it because most people don't live in the south, and then they drew a circle called the 60 south latitude, said you can't go past it. So, yeah, I would say look into it. You may be surprised.
Hey, Austin. There's so many questions that pop up that people want to know when it comes to, if they're new to flat Earth, they've just not been exposed to it, no matter what the circumstances are. So no matter how far they start researching it and they start learning about it, there's one question that perpetually comes over and over and over again. And that question is, why does it matter?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I briefly touched on that earlier, but I would say it undermines the creator. I think he said it very well. It detracts from the creator and what he created. So I think that's the most concise answer. It matters because, for one, truth matters. Yes. And it shouldn't actually go much deeper than that, to be honest. Truth matters, and if children are being lied to, it matters even more. So that alone, but also, like I said, atheism is growing more than ever. And although I can refute atheism without flat Earth, logically and scientifically, most people don't know that. Atheism is growing. They think the Earth is tiny and insignificant and nothing matters. It's all random and blah, blah, blah. It's not. And the Bible tells you what the Earth is. They told you the Bible's wrong. And so it leads people away from the Bible. They won't even consider it. People will try to straw man and say people think the Earth's flat because they believe in the Bible. Well, I found out the Earth is flat and was like, wait a minute, the Bible said that, right? So for me, my experience was different. Either way, my belief isn't just about that, but the point is that it is literally accurate when it comes to creation. It's undermining it. It undermines creation and what you made. So we did kind of address it earlier, but it's always worth going back over that. But, long story short, truth matters. They're lying. They're misleading children. Strong people need to speak up on behalf of women and children and stop being little cowards.
So, all right, here in the middle, Charla. I've been nominated by my friends to ask, are you the owner here? Yes, ma'am. So, we have done Flat Earth group meetups, and they've been pretty small. Like, if we could set your place as a meetup, and then we'll have a little bit more exposure and wanting to get together more often or something. Flat Earth, there you go. But then I do have a couple questions for Austin. So you talked about the gyroscope. I was going to ask about that. The mechanical gyroscope on a plane. Like, I have looked for a video, like showing somebody doing that. Have you seen or heard of that you could point us to?
No, it doesn't exist. So,
I mean, like somebody just taking one and then showing that it doesn't flip.
And that's definitive game over, yeah. So we're trying to set that up. charter a private plane, have a bunch of engineers, different mechanical gyros, so there's no questions asked, document at many angles, travel a few hundred, maybe 1,000 miles. The gyroscope has to tilt as you move and then flip over if the Earth's a ball. If the Earth is flat, it's not going to do that. What they claim right now is there's something called pendulous vanes, and they claim that it corrects for it as it's tilting. But we've pulled the data from the pendulous vanes, which, by the way, is very difficult to do and I think technically illegal. So, because it's blocked by Honeywell. Honeywell owns almost all of them, and you're not allowed to pull the data. We pulled the data. It did not correct for 8 inches per mile squared. So, hate to break it. Spoiler alert. But yeah, that is a good test. We want to do it. Yeah, so that's pretty much the answer to that. It doesn't tip like it should.
Okay, and then my other question is, this is one thing I haven't heard you talk about, and I've seen a lot of your videos. So what do you think about the theory that the sun and the moon both have a source light outside of the firmament, and then so the sun and the moon are not an actual, I don't know what they'd be, plasma inside, source light outside. And then could that explain the eclipses where that source lights maybe get in the way of each other to cause that eclipse?
That's interesting. Yeah, so I think the sun and moon are apparent locations, meaning like the sun and moon we see aren't really where we see them. Even in the globe model, that's the case, where everyone's like, oh, this is crazy. It's like, no, maybe just creation's kind of wild. You're not supposed to understand it. The sun is basically individual for each observer. So you see the sun where you see it, and if I'm 100 miles that way, I see the sun for me. And even the globe model has to say this because like the sun sets way too early and stuff. So they say, oh, the sun's not really there, So anyway, so there's an apparent position of the sun and the moon, and something like that would make sense as to why. There are layers of a container, and so we see a displacement of the sun and the moon. And so could that actual source be interacting with the apparent source or something? Maybe. I've actually replicated exactly what the moon looks like with electromagnetic holography, so like a hologram created by magnetism. The craters, the cycles, the colors, the phases, all that. So yeah, I think there probably is something pretty wild going on with the sun and moon. And maybe that's it. Yeah, I don't really know. I don't know where the sources are. The scriptures say the sun and moon are inside the firmament. I think the firmament has layers. I think they're closer than the stars. And great question. I think there's only so much we're supposed to know, to be honest.
All right, I'm Kathy. And has there been any recent scientific experiment done to measure the rotation or the size? Has there been any scientific recent?
No, because it's just assumed to be true, So the supposed evidence that shows, now this is going to get a little technical, but the supposed evidence that shows that the Earth is spinning is people use what's called a ring laser gyroscope, and it detects 15 degrees per hour. The 15 degrees per hour is how fast the sky spins. So we see the sun and the stars, they move. So you have solar rotation, that's the sun, and you have sidereal rotation, that's the stars. They move like almost the same rates, but a little different, right? It's like a 4-minute difference. Anyway, if you take a gyroscope, you can detect that motion with interferometry, which is light interfering with each other. So you just shoot light where it interferes, and you can measure things moving that way. It's the most precise measurement ever. Anyway, long story short, they claim that that's evidence the Earth's rotating because they made a prediction with the interferometry, and then they detected it 15 degrees per hour. Now, what they don't tell you is that they also did the same exact thing to detect the orbit, and it didn't detect it. And so actually the only answer to that is that the Earth is not moving, and there is a rotation, but it's of the sky. And we're detecting the rotation of the sky, and there is no orbit. And that's what the evidence showed, and they threw it out. So I'll say, no, there's no other test because they're still running from that test. That's why I encourage a PhD to come here. That would be great.
Hi, my name's Sean. I had a question about, have you done any tests down south with the star patterns? I mean, that's, if the Earth was a globe, then the stars would be rotating around the South Pole, right? It's a really simple, test, but I couldn't find any videos because it all gets scrubbed from the internet, and the ones I did find were clearly messed with somehow in terms of viewing the movement of the stars with relationship to Polaris and everything from closer down south?
Yeah, so southern star trails. So obviously, when it comes to what direction they're moving, like we said earlier, like if you walk across the street and you turn around, they'll move the other way. Specifically, with them moving around a specific point, I've seen some videos that are somewhat convincing that the effect exists. I don't. I've seen a lot of sketchy ones. There's way less videos of those. I met someone that I think I trust that did it. So obviously in the north, there are thousands of them. I've done it myself hundreds of times. I've never been in the south to do it. But what I've seen is the star trail videos I've seen, actually they don't occur in the right direction according to the globe, and it changes relative to where the person is. So I haven't gotten to the bottom of that. I'm not gonna lie. It's very fascinating.
Interesting.
Yeah, like I could get into the specifics. I'll lose people, but because of perspective, everything, you have a certain vision limit that you have. You basically see in a little dome in each direction, and then whatever you see fits within that. And you can look at anti-crepuscular rays. So if you Google anti-crepuscular rays, you'll see that. It's pretty fascinating.
You are deep in knowing what's going on with the internet, videos, how they show up online, everything else. What are your comments about how videos about flat Earth might be being erased or not shown to people and others propped up, etc.?
Yeah, so I would ask everyone that thinks flat Earth is wrong is like, why would you do that? But I will say, since the beginning, okay, well, so if you don't know the history, during 2016, flat Earth was the third most Googled term in the world. And it was behind Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Literally. It exploded in 2015. And so they clamped down on it. And then YouTube actually had a hearing, and they said, we're clamping down on misinformation. And Congress said, what are you going to do to stop it? And they said, well, we're going to deprioritize it. We're going to prioritize true information. And we're going to put a little disclaimer on it. And they used flat Earth as an example. So in Congress, they admitted we're completely censoring flat Earth or deprioritizing it, prioritizing anti-flat Earth. If you look up Whitsitt Gets It, say Geocentrism, which is the name of one of my streams, you're not going to find that stream, right? You're going to find 3 pages of people hating on me. So I think that's a tell that there's truth here that they don't want you to know about. They did the same thing with the pandemic, right? The exact same thing. And if they had not have done that, they wouldn't have got away with everything that they did, because truth does not fear investigation. One thing I'll say that's also wild to me, I recently found out, is this: when on YouTube, if you watch a video, you can go to your history and you can look at all the videos you watched, and you can search your history. If you watch flat Earth videos, they disappear from your history, and they actually replace them with anti-flat Earth videos. So tell me what's going on there. So yeah, they're very scared of this, and the reason's pretty obvious. It unravels all the lies.
Yeah, my name is CJ Cassiopo, and I gotta be honest, I probably learned about flat Earth 2 weeks ago. Mark, is that right? Yep. At one of my restaurants, Mark came out and told me a little bit about flat Earth, and I thought it was crazy. I'm a PK, which some people, I'm a pastor kid, right? I gotta tell you, one thing that stuck in my brain, that if you believe the Earth is round or flat or whatever else, or recycling saves the world, or whatever, I would say the most important piece that I take away from this is that God created the heavens and earth, and when God created you are the most important creation that he ever made. He made you in his image. He made you to worship him, and at any cost, if you leave here and you don't believe it, or you believe it, whatever, believe that you were the one that he created. And if you were the one he created and you're just a speck in the universe, that's not very important. But if you were the one that he created after himself, that's got to be pretty impressive. That's got to be something to understand, that you are worth his image. And if anything else, recycle, not recycle, whatever, know that God died for you, Christ died for you, and died for your sins and said, hey, here's the deal. You believe in me, you'll have an eternal life. If you don't believe in me, man, wake up. Wake up. So that's all I got. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing. Mark, thanks for letting me actually show up in one of your establishments, not mine. But yeah,
No, I remember.
appreciate it, man.
Yeah, yeah.
And heterosexuals are awesome. You get the award for having your hand up.
Tim Taylor again. There's been time-lapse photography of the stars over the Earth. I'd like you to talk about that.
Okay. Yeah, so I've done time lapse of the stars many times. I do some astrophotography. I wouldn't say I'm like expert in any way, but anyway, you can obviously just put your camera, face it towards the north. You can press the time lapse button on like a P900 or P1000. They're discontinuing those, by the way, for obvious reasons, but you will get star trails around the north, and that's because the stars move around Polaris. As to why they do, I would say it's because there's something called an ether, and there's a vortex in the ether, and it's causing the entire motion. Basically, everything spins around you. You're in the center. It's been measured with interferometry. It's been proven many ways. As you get closer to the sky, the measurement increases, and that doesn't work on the globe. But the most interesting thing I observed when I did the star trails, I alluded to it earlier, but I did the time-lapse of the star trails over the ocean. And according to the globe, I'm looking out at stars, and then the curvature of Earth is blocking the stars, right? So like when I look over the ocean, the stars should go into the ocean because the ocean's blocking the stars. Really, the stars are beneath my feet according to the globe. According to Flat Earth, they're just above you. So I did time lapse over the ocean to see if that was true. Every single time, the stars do not go to the ocean; they disappear above them. So. It's not a globe. I mean, it just is what it is. They don't intercept with the marine horizon. They disappear above that. The stars all move around central points. And the fact it's never changed proves that the Earth is not moving also. So.
Hey, Austin. My name's Ryan. Big fan.
Nice.
So one night I was with somebody who's not a flat earther. I was around a campfire at night, and I was trying my best to give him the arguments. And we just looked up, and we saw some satellites going by, and I explained to him NASA's the biggest. They purchase more helium than anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, trying to remember everything. And we saw these things just like ripping by the sky. And he's like, okay, so if those are hot air balloons, how are they going so fast? And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to answer it.
Yeah, fair enough.
I want to get your take on that.
Yeah, so NASA is the biggest purchaser of helium in the entire world. They purchase roughly 90% of the world's helium. They do have a Saloon project, so they send up high altitude balloons with satellites connected to them, and the vast majority of the public doesn't know that exists. They've been caught crashing out of the sky. They go up to 200,000 feet or more. They basically create a surveillance network system that we can't see. They're completely monitoring it's basically Skynet in real life. That's a real thing. I also think that satellites exist. I don't think they exist to the extent that they say. There's not nearly as much. They're not really that needed. They're not that reliable. They have huge fleets of balloons. But satellites do exist. This is the funny part. This is what I really want to talk to someone that says they put satellites up, and they'll never debate me for some reason. But the physics and equations use a stationary Earth, so a geocentric Earth in the center of the universe, and use the universe moving around it. And it's called inertial forces. They use real inertial forces. So they use Coriolis force, and not like the one we talked about earlier that's apparent. It's an actual force because things are spinning, creates a force. You also have centrifugal force and Euler forces. These are they're what's called inertial forces. Anyway, so they're real forces. In the heliocentric model, those do not exist. Those cannot exist. But for the satellite equations, they have to use it. I think this is a tell, actually, that there's some truth to satellites, or they would not let you know that, right? Like, if they're actually using satellites, they're having to use geocentric physics. To quote PhD astronomer Richard Bow, he said, it's been proven, 6 or 7 ways this century alone that the physics and equations used by NASA to shoot and launch rockets and satellites use a geocentric universe, and if they're proof of anything, it's geocentricity and refutation of heliocentrism. And so people may be surprised to find out that the satellite equations and physics actually only work on a stationary Earth. And if you looked at that depiction I showed you earlier, you'll see that right there is the ISS trajectory over a flat Earth. That's all the satellites' trajectories, and it matches the flower of life. So that's an FE win again, actually.
Hi, Austin.
Hey.
My name is Kat.
Hola.
I would like to personally thank you for what you do, the work that you do, everything that you put out, and for showing up in my backyard. I also would like to give a shout out to all the boys listening live at Ether Cause right now. Alan, Shane, Toby, all the boys there. Thank you so much for all of what you guys do. My question to you, as a flat earther who has been so alone and feeling like there was no one around me, tonight is my first night to be in a room with this many other flat earthers. What advice do you have to give to us, all of us, people out there listening, people in this room? What advice do you have for us that feel alone in this? Like, what can we do? What do you have to tell us, please?
Okay. So I will say, for one, what's popular is rarely true, and what's true is rarely popular. And so that just comes with the territory. But I will say, don't be discouraged. I can give my personal opinion based on my experience as to advice. If there's someone close to you and you want to bring up flat Earth, that's cool, but don't push them, don't press them. It makes it way worse. Because then they dig their heels in, and now they're going to not see it. So let them know. If they ask you, tell them what you think, and eventually they'll ask you questions. That's a hugely beneficial approach, because that way you're not separated from them. You don't necessarily lose connections, and I promise you they'll bring it up, right? They'll be like, oh, well, how does this work? They can't help themselves, so just let them bring it up. Even if they're making jokes, just stay calm, be cool, whatever. That's a huge solution to that. But when it comes to wanting to connect with other flat earthers, I mean, it's the world we live in, right? So obviously you can go online's ways. I think the Flat Earth app does have a find friend, like a friend finder function on the app. So you can find people within 20, 30, 40, 50 miles of you. If they're on that app, you can meet up with them, hang out with them. And I think obviously the most important thing is finding ways to just get the truth out there. So what I've discovered is the vast majority of people don't know any of this. And there's a group of people that'll just lie about everything, and they'll be like, oh no, but he was grabbing his pocket and the air conditioner was blowing or whatever, And then there's normal people that are like, that's weird. Looks like they're faking space, right? That's the normal person. And so what I've discovered in conclusion here is that most people will be honest. Most people want to know truth. Most people just haven't seen it. So just try to get the information out there and trust that they'll come around, and don't press too hard, because people get really emotional about this, and just kind of take it as a badge of honor if they revile you, and rejoice, for they did it to all the prophets before you. So.
Hello again. He told me to introduce myself. I'm Charla, 5th generation Idahoan. Please tell everybody back home that Idaho's full.
Idaho's cool.
Yeah. 2 questions for you. One, can you talk about stars and parallax and how it doesn't exist? I only learned that very recently, and I thought that was really awesome. And number 2, what's your story? How did you come to flat Earth?
Okay. Parallax, for those who don't know, is the idea that the Earth is, of course, spinning, tilted, wobbling, rotating around the sun, flying through the galaxy, blah, blah, blah. And that because we're moving that way over time, the stars change position, because they would have to. They should actually do it. It should be like an Etch-a-Sketch in the sky every night, to be honest. But they claim that they can measure parallax, but when you look into it, they don't. Like you said, it doesn't actually exist. the actual amount they needed to change in their model falls below like resolvability of telescopes. You can't even measure it if you wanted to in theory. And oftentimes they see them going the wrong way. So their measurements show that the stars are not moving the right way. If they are moving, it's a major problem. In addition to that, even if parallax was real, there's what's called a kinematic equivalence. So basically, if I move around this, it's like Austin's finger moves around the glass. That's kinematics, how bodies move in relation to each other. If the stars move around the Earth or the Earth's flying through space, there's a kinematic equivalence, meaning parallax doesn't even really help them. They do need it. We don't need it. The evidence is that it doesn't exist. The evidence shows that even if it does exist, it goes the wrong way. They call that negative parallax. They correct it, treat it like it's positive anyway. Every single square inch of this conversation is a rabbit hole and flooded with lies. My story is kind of funny. I kind of told it earlier, but I actually heard about flat Earth from a rapper. So a rap song. It's funny enough, yeah. So B.O.B. the rapper, he made a group of mixtapes called Elements. So it had water, fire, earth, air, ether. And so in water and fire, he's like exposing tons of conspiracies I knew to be true. From all the judges being Freemasons to the people that run the government being satanic pedophiles, you name it, naming everything. Fluoride in the water, poison in the food, chemtrails, chemicals, heavy metals, all this stuff. I'm like, oh, this dude's on point. Trying to tell people around me like, oh, well, listen to him. And maybe it's just 2 minutes. You can focus that longer. So then he came out and said the earth is flat. And I'm like, oh, you just totally made me look insane to everybody. So I had to look into it. I didn't get triggered by it, though, because I was already so like moon landing's fake, everything's a lie. I was pretty chill about it. I looked into, oh, we'll find pictures of Earth from space. Found out the last claimed real picture was from 72. That's the Apollo missions. I found out the Apollo missions were fake when I was 13. So that was really easy for me to just breeze right past. Like, something's here. 8 years later, here we are. So that's how I discovered it. And I just started looking into it. And yeah, here we go. Bob from Globebusters, shout out to him, RIP, talked me into going online. I didn't want to, but here we are now.
Any more questions? We have about time for one more question.
All right. I understand that maybe we've been deceived all along. It's terrible. It's just horrible for me to understand. Okay, so we move on, and we've got this. What in the world are we going to prove by explaining to them that the world is flat? You know, I don't understand it. It's like it's dividing us because we got so much to live for and so much love. What is it that's in your heart that's going to make it better?
Okay. Yeah, so I will say truth is divisive, and even the Messiah said that he came to bring a sword in that sense. He didn't come to unify everyone and sing Kumbaya. I mean, it sounds good, but truth is divisive. And truth is important. As to what does it kind of matter, I think that's kind of the idea. It goes back to the first. This is what happens if people speak up and find out the truth about this. We find out that all the major countries are working together. There's international cooperation. This whole be scared of Russia versus the United States, Iran, oh, China is going to invade Taiwan, oh, you know. This is all a lie. It's all a scam. They're all in the Antarctic Treaty. There's international cooperation. They do that so you'll be complicit with war so they can then make tons of money and then let our loved ones go die overseas for a war that they orchestrated. And then it gets declassified 20 years later that the CIA set the whole thing up. When people see through that, that's a major win for us. And then we get to, long story short, is a pretty good way to close this out, is what happens is we give the power that was taken from us back to our children, and now they get to grow up knowing, wow, this place is special. Wow, I get to look at the sky in amazement, understand the Creator made something I can't even understand, but it's special. I'm special. This place was made for me. They give them their power back. This whole lie about how they're insignificant gets thrown out, and then a future generation of healthy, unjabbed, unbrainwashed, unindoctrinated, homeschooled children grow up and then take the power back, and then we win.
All right, last question. So, if you're here tonight, you want more of this, you'll come back tomorrow at 7:30. So he'll be do biblical cosmology tomorrow night with questions and answers after. But our last question tonight, and if you screw this up, you can do it again tomorrow night. BRAVERITAS is a word that we made up, and it means brave truth. So you put brave and veritas together, BRAVERITAS. And so if you had the ability for everybody in the United States to forcefully hear what you're going to tell them for 30 seconds, and don't go over because I'm going to cut you off, okay? If you were able to have everybody in the country be able to hear what you're going to tell them, your BRAVERITAS, your brave truth, and let's make it somewhat related to our topic tonight, what would you tell them?
Okay. Truth is stranger than fiction. What's popular is rarely true. What's true is rarely popular. Vaccines are poison. All of the mainstream pharmaceutical system is made to keep you sick. Everything you've been told in mainstream public education is a lie. Look into things further. The earth is actually special and created for you. You're special. It's in the center of the universe. And you've been completely misled about everything from the fundamentals of where you live. Take your power back and investigate things as opposed to blind believing propaganda.
27, 28, 29, 30. Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, can everyone give a hand to Austin Whitsitt for being here tonight? Thank you guys for coming out tonight. We love you and we appreciate you. Praise God. Amen.